Ready to go? Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of Universal City, Texas. It happens to be Tuesday, September 6, 2022, believe it or not. Wow, time goes really fast. And I'll call this meeting to order now at 6:30 p.m. and call for a quorum check then.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Here.
Councilmember Buck.
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Shelby.
Present.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Here.
Quorum is present, we shall proceed. I will give the invocation this evening and the pledges afterwards, so everyone please stand. Heavenly Father, we come together tonight to ask for your guidance as we contemplate and make educated, strategic decisions on behalf of our citizens. We will vote on the budget for next year and the tax rate to support that budget. Those decisions could ultimately affect the city for years to come. Please give us the guidance and counsel to look well beyond the present. We ask that you inspire and instill in us and our citizens the kindness, thoughtfulness, and fairness we all deserve as we move forward, not only with the challenging budget decision, but with other issues of critical importance to this council and our citizens. As always, Lord, we ask that you watch over our military men and women, protect them and their families as they serve around the globe to ensure our freedom in these troubled times. We especially ask you to look over and protect those brave people who tirelessly serve us. Our cup is still overflowing with love and concern for their well-being. Finally, we can be thankful for the many volunteers who serve selflessly on boards, commissions, and committees to help us meet the needs of our community. I am personally thankful every day for this council and an outstanding staff who are totally committed to our citizens 24/7. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, I thank you all for coming this evening. It's great to have a full house. This is really awesome. Thank you very much for attending. And I think there's a few reasons why you're here, and there's multiple reasons, so thank you very much for attending this evening. The first item that we have is a proclamation, and I don't think, is anybody here from the Payroll Association? Oh, you are? Great, great. Come on up, and Mr. Shelby is going to, Councilmember Shelby is going to read this proclamation, and then we'll present it to you. Great. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Whereas the American Payroll Association and its more than 20,000 members have launched a nationwide public awareness campaign that pays tribute to the nearly 150 million people who work in the United States and the payroll professionals who support the American system by paying wages, reporting worker earnings, and withholding federal employment taxes. And whereas payroll professionals in Universal City, Texas, play a key role in maintaining the economic health of Universal City, carrying out such diverse tasks as paying into the unemployment insurance system, providing information for child support enforcement, and carrying out tax withholding, reporting, and depositing. And whereas payroll departments collectively spend more than $2.4 trillion annually complying with myriad federal and state wage and tax laws. And whereas payroll professionals play an increasingly important role ensuring the economic security of American families by helping to identify non-custodial parents and make sure they comply with their child support mandates. And whereas payroll professionals have become increasingly proactive in education, both the business community and the public at large about the payroll tax withholding systems. And whereas payroll professionals meet regularly with federal and state tax officials to discuss both improvising compliance with government procedures and how compliance can be achieved at less cost to both government and businesses. And whereas the week in which Labor Day falls has been proclaimed National Payroll Week, John Williams hereby gives additional support to the efforts of the people who work in Universal City, Texas, and of the payroll profession by proclaiming the first week of September Payroll Week for in Universal City, Texas.
Sorry.
That last line was, yeah.
Why don't you introduce yourself, and I will take it from there.
My name is Denise Kelly, and I'm with the Alamo chapter of the American Payroll Association. I just want to say thanks for.
And who do you work for?
I work for Wholecat.
Okay. Okay. I think we all recognize the importance of the payroll business. We've all been involved with getting paid over the years, and this association, it's been our pleasure to be able to recognize them every year. And I think it's only appropriate that we do this again this year, ma'am. And you read the proclamation, and I just want to thank you and all the members of your association that do so much to help make everybody feel happy when it's payday.
Yes.
Payday. So I want to present you with this proclamation and say congratulations to you guys and thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item is another form of recognition, and I know that many of you that have been attending council meetings in the last couple of months realize that we're doing a little recognition of people sometimes that go above and beyond. And so this evening, I got a recommendation from Councilmember Buck, and I'm going to turn it over to him and let him take it from there. So, Stephen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So up until tonight, many of you might have heard the name Spicy Ketchup and thought that it was a rapper name or a DJ or a punk rock band or something like that, and I wouldn't blame you for thinking that. But what they actually are is a robotics team here in Universal City that supports the youth programs of teaching these kids not only coding and how to control and manipulate the robots, but those important life lessons of attention to detail, problem solving, and dedication and hard work. So I've asked Team Spicy Ketchup to come up here tonight and be recognized. Team Spicy Ketchup, would you guys come up here as well as all the parents and supporters, please? So what are we recognizing them for? For their support, one, to teaching those valuable lessons to the youth of our community, but also for the support that they provide to Universal City. They're active at many of our volunteer events, most notably at the Pumpkin Patch and at the Movies in the Park, where they're donating their products, that they're selling food items out there. It's primarily a fundraiser, but they're also giving away some of their food as a raffle item to support the community. So the team is led by Javier Duran, and I'd like to ask Javier to introduce himself, please, and tell us a little bit about Spicy Ketchup, how their team name came about, and a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, thank you, Councilman Buck, Mayor Williams, members of the City Council. I know you guys do the hard work in this council meeting, so it's my pleasure to try to bring you some good news, or some great news, and why we love being in Universal City. This is a robotics team. The national organization is called FIRST. It stands for Recognition and Inspiration of Science and Technology. The whole goal of this organization, it's a nonprofit started by Dean Kamen, who he was the inventor of the Segway, and he started this organization to really, the whole purpose is to get kids to love math and science and to look at those careers, and you get them young, and some of these kids started with me in 3rd grade and 4th grade, and now they're seniors. And so the whole goal here is, what we do is we teach engineering, we teach programming, we teach robot design, competition, we also teach core values, leadership, outreach, inspiring younger kids. So if you saw some movies in the park, we had some of our robots from prior years showing kids how to drive a robot, showing what they do and what they can do, and at the same time doing a fundraising, kind of running a business, a self-sustaining organization. And these are all middle school and high school kids. These are your future doctors, engineers, lawyers, pilots, maybe even council members. So, and we could not do this without the generous support of Universal City. Regina Carmona has been instrumental in giving us opportunities to outreach. Ms. Blumenthal and the University Library give us meeting space. I cannot thank them enough for what they've done for us and what they've allowed us to do over the last 4 years. This team has competed at the world level, and we look to go back again. And so we're absolutely happy to be here. We thank you for recognizing us. And I'm going to turn it over to them to kind of introduce themselves and kind of show you a little bit what they can do.
I asked the individual members to introduce themselves and tell a little bit about themselves, most notably about what they enjoy about being on Team Spicy Ketchup. Brad.
Hi, my name is Brad Malton. I'm a student at ETA at Roosevelt High School. One of the big things I enjoy about robotics is being able to see kind of what the industry is like and getting an eye-opening experience into what real-world engineering looks like.
Hi, I'm Valeria Rosales. I'm actually an alumni from the team, and I'm going to be their co-coach this year. I go to UTSA, and something I've absolutely adored and loved about robotics is the family it's giving me. I feel so happy, so safe, so welcome and heard every time I'm in this meeting.
My name is William Weaver. I'm 13. I go to JSTEM. My favorite part about FIRST is getting experience in the engineering field.
My name is Eduardo Salcedo. I'm 14 years old. I go to Great Hearts Monte Vista North. My favorite part about robotics is I'm a new member to this team this year, and so I'm excited to learn new things and just have fun.
I'm Katie Duran. I'm 17 and a senior this year, and one of my favorite things, also I go to ETA at Roosevelt, and one of my favorite things is the teamwork aspect.
I'm Pilot Mosqueda. I am 17, a senior this year at ETA Roosevelt. One of my favorite aspects of being on this team is the community outreach and events that we do.
Hello, I'm Emily Duran. I go to Jetson High School. I'm a freshman and I'm 14 years old. My favorite thing about robotics is the friendly-ish community that it gives us.
I'm Charlie Weaver. I am 15, going to ETA Roosevelt. ETA at Roosevelt. My favorite aspect of this team is honestly just us helping the younger kids to get into the field.
And this is Cindy Duran, and this is Ginger Weaver also, some supportive parents of the group. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Team Spicy Ketchup. And they have a short demonstration of their robot.
So a couple of things while we drive around this robot and show you guys kind of what we do. Every year they give us a different set of tasks to complete. We actually get the task for this year on Saturday. This is our robot from last year, and a couple of the things that this robot was supposed to complete is it's supposed to be able to pick up some wiffle balls, some cubes, and deposit them into large trays, wobbly trays.
I would also add that this robot was custom designed in CAD. They 3D printed some test models, we laser cut some prototypes, then they machined it out of aluminum all themselves.
So a couple of really awesome things about this robot is if you notice that it has some rollers on the front of the robot, and that is to pick up the cubes that are littered all around the field. They're usually in the corners, but sometimes we drop them, so we have to go grab them up and put them in our trays or in a corner of the field. So we'll pick them up through there, and then we have an arm that will lift them up and we'll drop it into our wobbly tray. Very cool. If you ask nicely, he'll shake your hand too. Another notable thing about this robot is on the front, you'll notice that there's this obnoxious green wheel on the front, and that is so we can spin around a carousel, and that will get us points by dropping little ducks across the field. Those are worth some points, and I think it's really cute. But
kind of adding on to how this gives us kind of real-world insight as to what engineering field is like, one of the really special things about this robot is its drivetrain and its chassis. So one of the big things that Valeria mentioned was agility on the field, being able to reach into tight spaces. And so we're actually using a mechanism wheel drivetrain. And what these wheels are is they have these little rollers on them that allow you to move the wheels in a specific orientation and allow your robot to move sideways. So as you can see, these wheels here, they all have these little rollers. So we move them just right. It allows our robot to move sideways, and then we can still go forward and backward just like any other drivetrain. So we can truly move in any direction we need to, giving us a really agile experience on the field. So that's just one of the big things where it kind of shows you the real world experiences and what that's like.
Awesome. Well, you guys, thank you so much for coming out today. Thank you. Folks, this is what our city council meeting should be about, right? Right. This type of people. Guys, thank you.
drive directly down the road.
Thank you. If you get a picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get a picture real quick. Say y'all get up in the middle real quick.
Want to
good, you're good.
All right. You see, I'll smile. Awesome.
Hey, guys.
Thank you.
You kids are awesome.
And some of them are going to be sticking around for the rest of the city council meeting for school credit, I understand, yeah? They're like,
Thank you, Mr. Buck. Again, we started this, hopefully a tradition in Universal City now where we recognize specific groups or individuals who we believe need special recognition. And this is our opportunity at a council meeting so that everybody has a chance to witness some of the fantastic talent that we have in our area and people doing things well above and beyond the call of duty. So thank you very much for that. There's a challenge now for the rest of council. And even though using the audience, if you think there are some people who should be recognized that you think have done something very special, please let us know. And we'd be glad to consider them to be recognized at a council meeting. So thank you very much again for all of you that are participating. Okay, let's move on then to our next item, which is our consent agenda. It's listed under tab A. You can read in there, matters listed on this item are considered to be routine by council, enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion. However, if discussion is required, that particular item could be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. And for your own information, let me just give you first of all, I would be glad to entertain a motion.
Move for approve.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Najarian. And for discussion, let me add one quick thing about tab number C. Consider the appointment of the Parks and Recreation Commission Board of Adjustment. Two members that were originally selected in July will be unable to represent that particular organization. So Mr. Harry Westerfeld, who is our backup and choice for Parks and Recreation, will take over that position. And Scott Dagg will take over the position on the Board of Adjustment. So these are individuals that were listed as the backup when we voted on those a month or so ago. So congratulations, Harry and Scott. I'm not sure Scott's here this evening. I don't think he is. But there will be new members there. And on moving the city council meeting on to Wednesday, October 5th, that's because October 4th is National Night Out. And that's the night out when everybody has a chance to have their block parties. And even members of council, sometimes we find out where they are, and so we come out and come meet with you as well. It's a chance for everybody to camaraderie, and I know on my street of Mount Olympus, we're all very good about monitoring each other. We know who comes in and out of it. Our cul-de-sac, of course, but that's the reason that's that. So those are the items that are on there. So any discussion by any other council? All right, let's go for the vote then, please, Chris.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr.
So
Shelby.
we don't have to make kind of an amendment because there's a name change on that one item. I know it's under the consent agenda, but if we're changing who we originally approved on the parks, do we need to adjust that in the motion? The first reading had different people on there.
It had the reading and the alternatives.
So we did have the alternatives.
Yeah, the alternatives.
Okay. I just wanted, I couldn't remember if it was on the paper.
Yes, the backups were already listed. Those are the two gentlemen that will serve now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Chris, call for the vote.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes. The next item is citizens to be heard. There are a number of you that signed up this evening. I suspect that if looking at this, the roster is that those of you who are really interested in talking about the budget and the tax rate related to that budget. There are 5 of you that signed up. Is that okay? Here's what I'm going to offer to you. There's going to be a presentation on the budget, and then there's going to be another presentation about the tax rate to support that budget. If you want to wait until after those presentations, now the budget we've already done many times, but we do have to officially approve it tonight, and then tax rate to support that budget. But so what I'll do is I'll allow you, if you want to wait until after these presentations, to make your citizen to be heard comment, and then it'll go over to council from there. So if that's what you want to do, fine. If you would like to speak right now, that's perfectly up to you. So
can I do both?
Pardon?
Like, can I keep the first paragraph for after the tax rate, but then read my second paragraph now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you can. The rest of you, this is your option. So I'll call your name, and you can tell me if you want to speak now or a combination. So Ashton, you were the first one to sign up this evening, Ms. Bowman.
No, I'm not going to read it all after. I'm going to read the first part first. Okay. Okay. Do this all a bit. Sorry. Okay. So I'm gonna save my comments for the tax rate once we hear the tax rate. So let's talk about something exciting. So Ashton Bowman, 12807 El Dorado. I saw on the agenda that you have a tab for open records. I think that is awesome. I really hope that during this topic, the city can address how they can be even more transparent with its citizens so you won't have so many requests in the future. I think it's wonderful that the city even wants to talk about this. It's the perfect opportunity to talk about the way the city can lower these requests. Maybe by putting more easily accessible information on the city's website, we can help those numbers go down. The city can also look into the transparency program that so many other cities are involved in and find out the best way to make information available to the public without asking for open records. Since it's very clear on your slide in the agenda packet that citizens really want to be involved, they would love to learn more about the inner workings of the city. Since you legally have to fill and respond to open requests, I hope that the reasons for this tab is to workshop how to get the city to an even more transparent level with its citizens. Thanks so much.
Do you want to wait?
I'll wait till I'm done.
Okay. Mr. Mitz?
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments and then I'll save my budget until the end.
Absolutely.
They're not addressed during the council's discussion. Mine, other than the budget items, are not that serious issues, but I just want to bring them up. This regards the traffic light at Rose Garden Drive. I come out, go by CVS and come down by, and this is where the Planet Fitness is. I know they have a camera on that thing, but I've hit that light 90% of the time going down Pat Booker. And what happens is you'll sit there on Pat Booker, and there's nobody on Pat Booker wanting to take a left into Planet Fitness or a left into Rose Garden Drive, and the light still flashes. And I know we're concerned about traffic flow on Pat Booker Drive, so I was just asking if the city can maybe talk to TxDOT to see if they can adjust that light so that it doesn't allow for traffic flow that's not needed on Pat Booker. Request the city have Waste Management update the Universal City Residential Solid Waste Services brochure to reflect the correct days in which collection will not occur. It states collection will not occur on Independence Day and Labor Day, when in fact collection occurred on both those dates. So I don't know, maybe that was before Waste Management made some changes to collection days that they would or would not collect, but so I guess for those that might have the same problem, I might be the only ones. I guess you go on the Waste Management website and they'll tell you whether or not your area is going to be impacted on collection on these holidays. This has to do with city purchases. I said the city's charter states, to effect this policy, this is contracting, purchasing, the council shall determine an amount above which any purchases or contracts shall be completed, open to competition, subject to such rules and regulations and with such exceptions as the council may prescribe by ordinance. I said if not already established, request that the city council establish a dollar amount of purchases or contracts that are required to be completed. I want to thank the city for the extra work that they have performed and the spending of the millions of dollars that we have received from the federal government through the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Acts Fund. Properly spending that amount of funds is quite an additional workload for the city staff, and I want to thank them for those efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Rubel?
As I'm walking up here, so I don't burn up everything, I'd like to suggest that we give an endowment for the robotics team to address the trash alleyway issue, and everybody would be happy. First of all, I'm going to address the budget as it occurs in your order. I'll refer to the slide number. Slide number 7 essentially identifies hotel tax $110,000, venue tax for the golf course $1.5 million. Then going to slide 42 for the golf course revenues, it identifies approximately 39% of golf course revenues are generated by general administration. Translated, that means sales tax and hotel tax. That means that from that hotel and and sales tax. There's $1.61 million in revenue of tax money going to support the golf course, which means that 36.7% of the golf course play is free. 37.6% of the weddings at the golf course are free, and you get a discount in drinks if you go to the golf course. I would suggest pay to play. I've asked for a town hall meeting in the past. Tonight I'm going to ask for something special. I would like to ask Mayor Pro Tem Neville to review the history of golf course expenditures since he's been around and associated with the program, and report those expenditures to council and see if there's any way that will ever come out in the black in the golf course. Thank you for that. Number 2 on the same page is promotion and development. I've been told numerous times that $100,000 is to secure money for things like the Snow Fest. What happens when that money's not used for Snow Fest or contingency if you have to pay them? How come we pay $100,000 per year into that account? Where does it go? So basically 40% of the time it's not used at all. Okay? The remaining period of time, only $1,970 are used in that account, except for a 2-year period that I can't get an answer on where $458,000 went. Okay, I can't get an answer from the city from open request records. What I got was a list of the Christmas party expenses. Okay, so that's a big difference between that and $458,000 in an open request. Number 3, the median income of the citizens of Universal City, now plus or minus the time that this was compiled, is $31,800. The median income for an individual city employee is $50,300. $50,390. The graph that was presented to council shows essentially something called a whisker plot. It shows essentially the exceptional outside of limit values, of which there are 15. Okay, so I don't think there's any concern about catching up with these 15 people with regard to fair shakes and the rest on the fair shakes of the for salaries for the rest of the employees. So basically, again, I remind you that $50,000 is the median income for a city employee versus $31,800 for our individuals, for our residents. The last thing is the 2.5% cross-board increase for 20 years. That just does not make any sense. If you work the numbers, that means everyone will get a 60% increase in salary above COLA. Now, if you can do that in the outside world, that's great. If Social Security would do that for me, that would be great, okay? But they don't. So if you're going to give a 2.5% increase to everybody this year, please at least limit it to this year and not extend it for a period of time. We're in a changing economy already. It's already changed from an employee shortage to now businesses are cutting. There's going to be an employee excess, okay?
Mr. Rose, you need to wrap it up, please.
Thank you. Okay, so basically, Mr. Mayor, I hope Mr. Neville takes me up on the challenge since I can't get anywhere else. I go to you, sir, with your senior advice. Thank you very much.
Dr. Hart, did you want to speak now, or would you like to wait until? Okay, all right, very good. Let's move on then to our business items for this evening. First is tab number B, which is discuss and take action on Ordinance 668, authorizing the issuance of waterworks and sewer system revenue bonds, Series 2022, and approving and authorizing all other instruments and procedures related thereto. Mr. Hearn?
Thank you, Mayor. We have Victor Quiroga and Boris back, and they're going to give you the results of the bidding process.
Okay.
Honorable Mayor, members of council, Ms. Turner, thank you for having me here this evening. For the record, my name is Victor Quiroga with Specialized Public Finance. We have the honor of representing the city as your financial advisor. As Ms. Turner indicated, also with us is Jay Waters. He's with McCall, Parkers, and Horton, and he prepared the agenda language and also the bond ordinance that you're considering today for the sale. And we do have a presentation.
Yes. We're on. You want to do
Sure. Well, we're here today to give you the results of that bond sale regarding the waterworks and sewer system financing that we conducted. Last time you saw me, we prepared and presented to you a financing plan on moving forward with the issuance of $4.5 million in bonds. And so we're here this evening to give you the results and then for your consideration and potential action to approve the interest rate we're locked in today, and then us moving forward with the closing so you could receive those fundings next month. And so as I indicated earlier, last month we gave you approval to move forward on $4.5 million with waterworks and sewer system revenue bonds here in 2022. Today, after we prepared the various offering documents to visit with rating agencies, we went into the market and locked in an interest rate. It's a 20-year interest rate fixed at 3.99%. I was hoping that would be at 4%. This is the first time we're actually right on budget. Normally I try to get below budget, but we are still in a rising interest rate environment. Folks still think that interest rates are going to continue to go up, and we saw some of that late last week and early this week. But we were happy with this interest rate. We locked in at 3.99%. And again, that's fixed for a 20-year period. Based on your approval this evening, we could set up the closing of this transaction to occur on October 4th. No additional meetings are required. That's just done over electronic bank wire. The next slide, we do have handouts as well. This is the pro forma and the debt service coverage regarding the utility system and this financing and how it fits in with your overall debt. The issuance today, again, we locked in an interest rate of 3.99%. That's in column I. We're not assuming any projected revenue growth or expenditure growth in this model. We're just using 2021 figures. I highlighted the right side. This is a coverage factor. So long as that number is 1.25 times or greater, that's a good thing. And so all those years, even including next year when this debt will fully hit, we're well above that at 3.07 times. That's just an indicator as to how great our revenue is as compared to the annual debt payments that we have for this bond issue in addition to the existing bond issues that we have. So again, that's going to continue to grow as we continue to pay off the existing bonds that we have for the waterworks and sewer system. On the next slide here, this is, again, just to highlight that the debt that you're considering today is not supported or secured by property taxes. They're only secured by the waterworks and sewer system revenues. The bond investors know that, and so they went in there knowing that they're not going to be secured by property taxes, so just to let you know that. The two major bond factors when we're issuing these type of bonds, number one is the coverage factor that we talked about, the 1.25 times. We're well above that now and moving forward. The other big covenant that we were promised that we make with the bond investors is that we're going to have a rainy day fund, or what we call a debt service reserve fund, essentially equal to the average annual payments on the new debt plus the existing debt. So right now, that figure is $468,000 is what we have to maintain in that reserve fund. As of last month, the city has a balance of about $534,000, so we're already well above that, and that's just cash on hand that the city has, and so we're meeting those covenants already with the new bond investors. The next news is really exciting. Through this process, as I indicated earlier, we first prepare offering documents, and then we also visit with Standard & Poor's. They're an independent rating agency, one of the top 3. And so through this process, after analyzing financial data and also a great presentation Ms. Turner and Ms. Moore and Mr. Luzman had with the rating agencies, they decided to upgrade the city's rating for the waterworks and sewer system. So last time I saw you, we were at the AA category. That's AAA is the highest bond rating that you could get. The city's GO rating, which is property tax supported, that's a stronger credit rating. That's a AA+. And so recently, S&P, after reviewing the city's financials with the waterworks and sewer system, also decided to increase your utility system bond rating to a AA+. I want to mention that because it's pretty rare when you do get a rating increase, but it's also very rare when your GO-supported debt or property tax-supported debt is the same rating as your utility system debt. So that's pretty uncommon, and just want to let you know that's very good news, and congratulations on that to you and also the administration for maintaining strong financials and getting that rating upgrade. Some of the rationale, and we do have rating reports here, the detailed rating reports, and if you have trouble sleeping at night, that might be something good to look at. But it does give a good overview as to why Standard & Poor's decided to upgrade the city's waterworks and sewer system. But here are just some of the highlights. The first two were the big highlights were the strong financial metrics that the city's maintained over the last 5 years with your waterworks and sewer system. Also, your proactive management policies and practices. You all have been very conservative in your budgeting and maintain strong expenditure controls. And then also just in our general area, we have affordable utility rates compared to other cities throughout the country. Strong debt service coverage ratios that we talked about. Liquidity reserves of $8.7 million as of your 2021 audit, and well above the 6 months operating expenditure that management likes to keep. And also we have limited debt needs when it comes to the waterworks and sewer system. So with all those things, Standard & Poor's decided to upgrade the city's waterworks and sewer system rating from AA to AA+, just shy of a perfect rating. So here, this final slide is just the summary of the bond transaction. If you approve the bond sale today, the interest rate that we would lock in is at 3.99%. And again, the rating did change and increase and helped us get this rating today from a AA to a AA+. Based on your approval today, we could close the transaction on October 4th via electronic bank wire. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have on the financials or for Jay regarding the ordinance that you're considering this evening.
Let me entertain a motion and then we'll open up for discussion.
Move to approve.
Second. Najarian, second by Councilmember Neville. All right, let's open up for discussion. Specific questions to Victor? Yes, Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Kuroga, thank you for coming out tonight. Hilltop Securities is the purchaser. Do they now hold a lien on anything related to our waterworks? You say that the bonds are secured strictly by the water revenue.
Yes.
Much like I get approved for a car loan based on my income, but if I don't pay my bill, then somebody's going to come and take my car back. Do they hold anything, or is the only penalty for non-payment is we default and our credit rating goes down?
Yeah, well, hopefully that won't happen, but basically under state law, whenever you do these type of municipal bond financings, the purchaser does not have any type of collateral or lien on any of the properties. So none of the assets that the waterworks and sewer system has, do bond investors have a lien on the specific asset or anything that you intend to use these bond proceeds for. All they have is just the coverage factor that we tell them that we have to maintain in terms of the revenue. If for some reason, we're below the $1.25 million, 1.25 times coverage factor that we showed a year earlier that we're well above, at that point, they would probably, take you to court and require you to increase your revenues, but likely it's never really gets that way. At that point, the city would say, okay, we're kind of running low on this coverage ratio. We need to take action to increase our rates. And so at that point, that's the way you would stave off any type of default. It's very rare when municipalities do default, but yes, sir, there's no lien on any assets, no collateral. That's just the only mechanism, the revenues coming in that they have a security on.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
3 months.
Okay. Comment?
Yes, Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Victor, good to see you again.
Likewise.
And always good, especially when you bring us good news like this.
Yes.
The difference between the AA and the AA plus is huge. Working on these figures, how hard is it, in your opinion, a city our size maintaining a good rate of AA plus? Not real easy to do it.
No, and you all have been doing it just because you are very conservative. You take care of your monies really well. The council and the administration has taken very prudent actions in the past and maintain strong reserves. And rating agencies, that they had a checklist on the boxes that they check. Strong reserves is very high up there, and in fact probably number one. And so so long as you maintain pretty strong reserves and don't get too low on them, you'll be able to maintain that. You asked me before, can we get to the AAA rating? And I don't like to overpromise. I think it's doubtful just because we are essentially a landlocked city, and so the amount of growth that could continue is somewhat limited in that aspect on the geo side.
Yeah, and I understand that, and hopefully everybody else out in the audience understands what a AA plus rating means, especially in this city, and being able to maintain it. And for the comment I was going to make is, I almost quote you on this when you said it's because of the very conservative ways we deal with our budgeting. And I just want everyone to keep that in mind as we go through the budget session, that we have been rated as being very conservative in our budgeting due to having a fantastic staff, because I couldn't make heads or tails out of it. Anyway, thank you, Victor. Appreciate it.
Very good. All right, anyone else? All right, again, Victor, thank you very much for the presentation, and the rating is welcome to it, very, very welcome to it. So, no other discussion, let me call for the vote then, please, Chris.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville, second.
Yes.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. That's great news for Universal City, definitely great news for us. Okay, let's move to tab number C. It's going to be a presentation of the concept plan for 2902 Patcoca Road. I'll turn it over to our city manager, and then we'll go from there.
Just to wrap out the last one, Mayor, you and I, Kristen, have a lot of stuff we need to do. If we can get that done in the next 2 days, we need to overnight it back to them so they can go to closure and file their date. Yes, so as you know, this is a terrible thing. Does anybody know where the address of 2902 is without looking at a map? And the answer is usually no, because you might know because you've seen it now. But it is the property that we have for over 50 years referred to as Junkie Joe's. And so from a staff perspective, we kind of agreed that since it's in the process of being developed, we are going to try to no longer call it that, and we're going to call it by its address, 2902 Patcoca Road, until we get some type of development there. So we have representatives from White Conley Builders. They are here this evening, and this is their initial plan unit development presentation. And so from the council, what they are looking for is questions and answers and guidance and direction, because at some point as an entity, they need to make a decision whether or not they think this project is favorable for the city from your perspective, as well as the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and some of them who are here this evening. And then also from themselves, they need to determine whether or not they need to make further investment in this community. So with that, I will turn it over to, I don't know who's speaking, Ashley, if you're going to speak. You can actually speak from here if you want, because we have a clicker here.
And you can introduce your team anytime you want.
Okay.
Great. Hi, good evening. I'm Ashley Fairmont of Killing Griffin and Fairmont. I'm a local land use and development attorney. I'm here to help with potentially rezoning this site. This is Kevin White with White Conley Builders. Kevin has all the much more interesting things to share with you all, so I'll be pretty brief. As Kim mentioned, I think everybody might know where this site is. Hopefully we can show you something that's better than Junkie Joe's this evening and get some feedback from you all on the proposal. What Kevin is looking at doing is a Class A market rate multifamily project here. You can see where the star is, where the site is, just in case. Here's the 13.9 acres. There's the water tower to the west, we'll call it, and the animal hospital and the storage to the southeast sort of direction. The site currently is zone C3, your commercial services zone. What we're looking at doing is a PUD. We fit within, I think, the R5 standards. We're less than the R5 density, but we understand the importance of having certainty in what would go there. And so that's why we're looking at the PUD, and that's what I would be working with Kim and Michael on, is drafting that and creating an ordinance that would be, comparable and including the site plan and something that you all would be supportive of. So again, we're happy to answer questions and hope to get your feedback, but I'll turn it over to Kevin to get into the interesting piece of the presentation.
How's everybody doing this evening? Thank you. Thank y'all for this forum. To get the feedback at this juncture is, as mentioned to the mayor previously before the meeting, it's very helpful for us because now is when we can really affect change in what it is that we're trying to put together here. Just really.
Speak up just a little
Sorry.
bit to make sure everybody can hear you.
Sorry. Just touching base, White County Builders is who I represent and who I'm a part of. White County Builders has been based out of San Antonio, and we are a multifamily developer builder since the early 70s. The principals, John White and Tom Conley, have been doing multifamily development in this state since the early 70s. They have over 25,000 units on record and over 100 projects successfully around the state. We've survived the 80s. The downturn of real estate in the 80s, we survived the housing crash of 08, and we continue to only do multifamily development and building as a general contractor. I am a second generation, I'm willing to admit today. I have another, Tom has a son that also works with us. I've been with White Conley for over 17 years, he has as well. This is what we do for a living, we live in the community. We want to create lasting marks on our community that uplift it and provide housing for people on a standard that we like to put out in the community. All we build is market rate Class A multifamily currently and have for the recent history. Since 2009, we've completed 22 projects kind of in this modern era, right at 6,000 units and over $472 million worth of asset. Currently in San Antonio and the surrounding area, nothing in Universal City at present. We have 4 active construction projects, 2 are self-developed, 2 are general contractors. I have another self-developed project that should begin construction on the west side of San Antonio within 90 days. This particular piece, obviously y'all are quite familiar with it, 2902. We're proposing a project that it consists of 268 units. This is fully market rate project. The overall area, from my perspective in the industry and looking at it from a development perspective, is in need of additional apartment, multifamily unit, and there is a vacancy need within the market. The closest example I can put to that is Retama Ranch, right across the street. From 2902. Retama Ranch is currently listed at 97% occupied at $1.80 a square foot rent. That is above city averages for City of San Antonio and Universal City as a whole. When you expand the radius out, you pick up like a 3-mile radius, you actually pick out Forum, Lookout, extending outside the boundaries of Universal City. Those numbers drop a little bit, but the performance within the city, Universal City itself, for older product is above city averages, and occupancies are higher than what you see across the city as well. And the greater Metroplex area, not just Universal City, when I say city. I would also like to add that Retama Ranch and the other property that's directly across the street are both at 24 units to the acre. Our proposal right now, currently you can see it in the staff notes, is 19.28 units per acre. It's a lower density deal. That's kind of in our sweet spot. We like to do, as far as that goes, it adds for more impervious cover. And it also more green space, more trees can be saved. It creates a better feeling of community in our opinion, and that's something that we like to put together. So I think that's definitely worth noting on that front. The 268 units, at least in premise right now, is being proposed. It's got an 824 square foot average. I'm loosely projecting about $1.76 at this point. San Antonio and the surrounding Metroplex area, including Universal City, has been experiencing double-digit rent growth. And we hear about affordability every single day. Those are decreasing slightly. Over Universal City, we're seeing about 8% right now from a high of about 15% earlier this year. Don't foresee the double-digit rent growth to continue. It's pulling back like what we would expect in the market. What we're proposing is 72% one bedrooms, 22% two bedrooms, 6% 3 bedrooms. 9% of the 1 bedrooms are efficiency style units. Parking ratio is 1.73, which limits the amount of impervious cover, but also provides adequate parking for a project of this size. And again, we're 19.28 units per acre, which for multifamily of this size is fairly low density. Just put up on the screen is a colored schematic site plan for this juncture. It includes 10 residential buildings, 3 of them are 2-story, 7 of them are 3-story. And there's a clubhouse facility, 2 cabanas, pool, outdoor area, dog park, pet wash station, maintenance building, compactor, valet trash is typical amenity set. I'm trying to think of what else, what I haven't hit on yet. We are showing a very large detention area in the back. That is a placeholder for the moment from the engineers based off this juncture of the project, but that's expected to need to be utilized based off of initial engineering data for the area, and that consumes a lot of it. One of the things we did try to do when we were putting this site plan together that we try to do is be respectful of our neighbors where we do have residential neighbors around us. Not everybody likes to have a 3-story building staring them in the face. We've tried to pull the buildings off of the boundary as much as we can within reason and keep that double parking and fire lane typically around the outside of the buildings more to the interior to help alleviate that feeling that we're peering over some of these fences as best we can. And the detention pond in the back also buffers between the multifamily and the single family that's adjacent to us in that area. One of the comments that we got from city staff was trying to incorporate a bus turn area or pull-off zone off of Pat Burger Road. We've elected to try to show a bus turnaround area in our entry area, traffic circle type of a feel that would comply with those radiuses. I'm reluctant to do or try to make promises about the lane pull off along Pat Booker Road because I know that that's a TxDOT road and I'm going to be subject to whatever the traffic impact analysis tells me to do because that's TxDOT and there's really no arguing with that. So I'm reluctant to make promises that I can't keep to you and to the community. So that's why we did it on site because that's something that I do have control over. So we've done that in that case. Lighting project would be down lighting, LED predominantly, if not exclusively. Every product that we build currently achieves a bronze green status from NGBS. It's something that we started doing as a company a number of years ago, and we continue that, and this wouldn't be any different. And to do that, it does require all LED lighting, and we also would be doing down lighting in this instance as well. That's become pretty standard. Interior finishes within the apartments themselves would be your wood vinyl plank flooring, granite countertops, undermount sinks, higher end plumbing fixtures, decorator class lighting, garden style tubs, stainless steel appliances. Trying to think if there's anything I missed. There is a couple, if you were on that site plan, the buildings are in a couple of small circles. The second circle to the bottom half includes outdoor recreation area. That's part of where we get that little bit lower density on the units per acre versus trying to cram another building in there. We're currently showing a cabana and just outdoor recreation area to be determined, whether that be pickleball is really the rage of the age at the moment. Could be a couple pickleball courts, playground, additional cabana area, outdoor yard games, things of that nature. Any of those that would potentially be in the amenity set for that area. Clubhouse would have typical amenities for a product of this size, which would be 24-hour fitness center, package lockers, valet trash is actually at the units. That pretty well covers my high point stuff. Now, what are your
For council, if you look at the package that Michael put together for you, you'll see that he put some items for consideration. And the reason we included those items is those are generally some questions that you've asked in the past. And so that's just kind of your guidepost moving forward. Obviously, you can go beyond that as well, but these are some of the general questions that as a developer, they're going to want to know your thoughts and feelings on.
Okay, Council, this is our opportunity to give our impression and our feelings towards this particular project. So that's why we made this opportunity possible for all of you, potential developers, so you can hear from us as to what we might consider you might want to look at. So I'll open it up for discussion right now for anyone. Yes, Mr. Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for coming out to present this. I appreciate the opportunity to provide some feedback. 268 units, what's your average child ratio and what impact might this have to our local schools?
It varies depending on the community. So that's a very hard metric to pin on as a whole. Generally, it is much lower than what you would expect. Typically, you have younger professionals and young families that typically, prior to kids, meaning couples in whatever status that live in apartments, and a more senior level individual that possibly is by themselves, things of that nature, but not necessarily needing other type facilities. The kids within communities of this caliber typically is reasonably low, but it's hard to put an exact number on it. Typically, it's somewhere in the 20 to 50 type range, but it's not overly burdensome typically on existing schools or facilities within the systems.
And wouldn't you typically find families and children in 2-bedroom apartment units?
Yes.
And how many of those do you have?
The 2 bedrooms is 22%.
22%.
Of the 268, and the 3 bedrooms are 6%.
Let me make a quick little comment here as well for you. It has been, as we all know that have lived in this community for a long time, it's been a total eyesore for us for a long, long, long time. And you've got some buildings that are going to be facing Pat Booker Road out there. Is there anything special you're going to do with those buildings so the aesthetics of that particular location right along those buildings on Pat Booker are going to be something slightly different than the other buildings? Because I think it's really important for the aesthetic value, people driving down the road and say, my gosh, look at what we got now compared to what we had before.
Understood completely. I'm going to go back to the site plan so I can explain one thing. One thing we've done in the building that are up adjacent to Pat Booker Road, we've actually got 2 different buildings. The long, more thin building that's up toward the top of the page on the left is a 2-story townhome style unit. And then the larger building, down page slightly to the right of the clubhouse entry, that would be a 3-story style apartment building. So it's not the same homogeneous building across the front, number one. Number two, we use a lot of native Texas limestone in our building, as well as stucco and fiber cement on the exteriors. We absolutely can enhance certain sides of the building based off of that and the aesthetic appeal from coming up and down Pat Booker. Whether it be the ends of those buildings or the ones that orientate more to the roadway, the backside of those buildings. One thing Ashley brought up, I'm going to skip ahead a few slides here. Ooh, that was really fast, sorry. To this product would be a sister product to a property that would, several properties that we've done 3 other times. This is the leasing facility on another project that would mirror what this clubhouse leasing facility is. And you can see the use of limestone and brick with limited amount of fiber cement on this standing seam metal roof on the clubhouse facility. In this instance, that would be a rendering plan view of the 2-story town building. Now, in this particular instance, it shows more fiber cement siding than what we would intend to be doing on this one. This one had a little bit less on it. Right now, this is a market rate deal, as I mentioned, that's all we do. So I have to be very conscious of the money relative to exteriors and what those costs are. Right now, we're incorporating more and more masonry because fiber cement, you can't get it and you can't afford it if you can get it. So that's creating challenges on an economic front. So that's actually increasing the amount of masonry that we're doing. But that is something that we would be happy to work with staff on to make those aesthetics on those, especially those key areas like you mentioned, that face out to Pat Booker. And let's give forward to some of these buildings. That's the clubhouse. This is the same pool and cabana set, similar to what's being shown on the site plan currently. And these are all from a property called Timberville Commons, which is in the city of Leon Valley, that was completed about 24 months ago. Interior clubhouse. This is a project called Mission Escondido, which is on Mission Road, just south of downtown. This is a slightly different product level than what we're talking about here. This is a slightly more elevated and a little bit more urban core type of a project, higher density, much higher density, 4-story type project. But that's another project that we completed recently. And that's the end of the pictures.
Okay. Mr. Goolsby. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate you showing us the mission option because I like that, where I really don't care for what is in the proposal. It's very typical, it's very common, it's very, it's what I expect to see at an apartment building. And I want something that when we come on Pat Booker is going to be new and fresh, something that's a little bit more exciting. I understand that's really easy for me to say sitting over here, and that's not my dollars, and I get that. But you're asking for our opinion, and there's my opinion. So the 2-story things, can you explain those a little bit to me? If I rent one, do I have first and second floor?
Yes. Living is on the first floor, bedroom is on the second floor.
Okay. I liked that concept. I thought that was pretty cool idea. I did not care for that elevation because, like you said, there's just way too much privacy in our elevation.
And what that black and white rendering does not do justice there is the different use of siding materials and the different colors that break up that elevation. Obviously, clearly a black and white image and just the base CAD file of fiber cement does not do that justice. But right now, that's changing because of the market and just what's available out there dramatically.
Right, and I've got one really just long linear rooftop. I understand it's broken up a little with those little features, but just all the way across it just hurts. So I would appreciate to see something that just has a little bit more life to it on those. Again, I loved the idea. I thought it was a great idea to incorporate a different style of living for the people in UC. On your amenities, I'll tell you one thing that would be amazing is the splash pads. Apparently they get really busy around here. Let's see. How long do you hold your properties? Do you hold them?
Typically 3 to 5 years.
3 to 5 years.
Assets of this class sell to typically insurance companies, institutional type money that keep it at a level equal to this. A project of this sort, when it's complete, will sell between $65 and $85 million, and people don't spend that kind of money to pull all the ad revenue out of it and let it go down, as you see with B and C class assets, and typically the assets that are 30, 40 years old within the community. A class assets of this sort typically are very, very different institutional level of buyer, and they need to maintain the rents at the level at which they purchase it at, if not increasing over time, to keep up with the market, to maintain their revenues for an asset of this class.
Okay. The 1.73 parking spaces per unit, is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
I would beg you to increase that number for us. We just got, Kim, I don't know, I don't remember what that number is. All I know is that it's never enough parking at the apartments.
So on their parking, if we can get to that page, they've actually allotted for extra parking spaces. Give me a second.
17 spaces over there.
There's 17 spaces over the required parking. So they have 17 extra spaces.
Okay.
So when you look at the code breaks it down by unit, the requirement, and so they met the code requirements. If they were to go straight R5 multifamily, and they've exceeded that.
Okay. I just, the apartments near my house, I know, but I don't know.
Yeah, there is
I
a
know.
difference between your apartments and theirs, and they're actually on a residential street, so they feel like they can go into the neighborhoods and park. This one is in no residential area, and they would have nowhere else to park but on site. And so, one of the things that we often talk about with people when they're developing, whether it's apartments or commercial buildings, is you better have a plenty of green space for later, because it's green now, but it's going to be a parking space at some time in the future. And the other thing that we remind apartment people, owners, is that periodically it's incumbent upon them to go and look and see who's on the lease for each unit, because what we see, it happens, it creeps over time. Somebody lives there, and then maybe their cousin or their friend moves in with them, and so then they each have their own cars, but only one of them is on the lease. And so with the one near your house, we recently had to do that, and boy, did we get a lot of parking spaces back once they went in and actually did their lease assessments.
Do you have like garage storage? What's the storage situation like for these units?
Most all of, we're fairly generous in closet space within these units, in our opinion, compared to comps. And almost every one of these floor plans has a storage unit on the patio.
One more, then I'm going to call it in. The funding on this, are you going to be looking to, how is your funding going to be set up for something like this?
I have equity sources, and I conventionally finance it.
Okay, so it's not one of those things where you're going to look for the city to be?
Nope, this is a straight market rate conventional deal.
PFC is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And housing credits.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shelby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Neville, and then Mr. Adjournment.
And so looking at the drawings here, the trees along Pat Booker, those are the trees that the EDC put in. We're planning on maintaining those as much as possible. I'm sure we've got, those cuts won't line up with the current entrances with
probably. We did speak to staff about those, and they expressed an interest to save as much of that as we can and or even move them. I'm absolutely willing to do what we need to on that front. These right now are really largely in place for rending purposes. We have not done a tree survey yet.
Okay.
Pending this rezoning effort, I'm trying to watch the dollars that I'm spending relative to that. It is our intention that we would save as many trees as we can, because we like the aesthetics of that. I'm not going to clear cut it.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I'm thinking about, especially, I like the idea of the buildings being, kind of backed up to Pat Booker, except with one caveat, when you've got the patios, not everybody maintains their patios to the nicest standard. Sometimes they end up being like storage. So, having the trees there, because looking at the three-story building, the patios will be facing out towards Pat Booker as well as the two-story, correct?
Correct.
The entrances on the inside.
And that, what you're describing, and frankly, the parking situation and the names on leases really comes down to the management company and the day-to-day operation. And the level of scrutiny for things like patios, barbecue pits, storage, things like that, that goes on, and lease violations, that's all. It's very tightly controlled via the lease, and then the tenants require, that burden is put on the management to sort of police them relative to what they do and don't do, to not turn it into just that. Because you're not going to maintain the level of product at what this is designed to be built at and what these rents are performing to achieve from an economics perspective if you allow that to happen. So that there's every reason for this not to turn into that, because it wouldn't succeed long term for what it is intended to be and what it will be.
Okay.
And I might add, the majority of the landscaping that you see out there now is actually in the right of way, and that is the city maintained. Where we would be working with them is on the area where they need to put their driveways in. Obviously, we need to trim back so that there's a visibility issue. But in terms of weeding down the number of trees across the entire frontage, we're not proposing to do that, because obviously their residents are going to want some buffer from everybody who's driving by as well. And I think that landscaping will serve those residents well, as well as serve the drivers who don't want to see theirs done.
Right, but TxDOT handles the curb cuts, doesn't it?
Yes.
We won't get to have much say in that.
Correct, but they're only proposing 2 curb cuts. There's already one there now. And so there's no landscaping in that area. All the landscaping that you see is outside of that curb cut, so you're really just talking about one more.
Okay. And then kind of, oh, I'm sorry.
As I say, in fire code, this is where TxDOT has to give slightly sometimes. Fire code requires, based off the unit count being over 200, that there are 2 ins and outs. So that's the necessity for 2 ins and outs.
And the good news is that the driveway cuts are not in front of the buildings. They're actually on the ends caps of the building, so that will make the patios less visible as well.
And we're good with the turn radiuses needed for the fire department to get in?
I was asking if you ran the turn radiuses for the fire department.
It's tentatively drawn that way right now. Obviously, that would all be verified when it goes through the building permit process. And it would obviously have to meet all of that criteria.
Okay. And I'll pass off after this one, but what are we expecting the in and out traffic loading to be on a complex this size? I mean, I know that's kind of more of a traffic study question, but we're looking at probably about maybe a quarter of a block from the light at Buckingham Village. So, I mean, I know we're working on Papa Road already to try and fix that problem, but you know, we're introducing more right turn traffic towards the exit, leaving the city versus I don't see as many people turning left and going towards the base, potentially.
Surprising. So I'm guessing what he's asking is, in your analysis with TxDOT, are they going to require you to do a traffic impact analysis?
Absolutely, yes. We'd have to do that. And I expect, based off engineering conversation, that there will be some restriping potentially is what I'm told, but probably only in that vein is what engineers are telling me to right now. But that hasn't been done, so it hasn't been determined. That's forthcoming.
But I was just saying, will that affect you developing this? I mean, is TxDOT going to come back and say you're going to create too much of a traffic problem here?
Not. The only thing that they could do relative to that would not allow me to have 2 curb cuts.
Okay.
In this instance, largely speaking. The other, any traffic accommodations relative to the Pat Booker Road, I would be able to accommodate within the economics of this project. Unless there's something radically unforeseen that I don't know coming, but I don't believe that to be the case.
I mean, I know it's not that bad at Rotama Ranch, but they're also coming right to the gas station, so they can pick the light if they want to.
Well, actually, the gas station is using their driveway.
Oops.
Yeah.
The other way
They
around.
haven't agreed, it's fine.
I didn't study for that, sorry.
Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Neville.
Thank you, one question, I have 2 questions. One first, what school district would that in? Would that be Judson or would it be Sure? Judson. That'd be Judson.
Judson. I'm guessing Judson, everybody's saying Judson.
Insurance district, stuff that's insured is always going to be this side of that.
The other thing that always gets to me, particularly since you said it's geared towards senior citizens, and there are some in this room, I won't name names, who are senior citizens. And you're looking at 3 shorts, okay? And I see they are outside stairwell, not protected from the weather. And I presume, therefore, that you think that if someone 80 or so gets a 3rd floor apartment, hopefully they're going to have kids young enough to take their belongings up with them. And what with the rise on the stairs going up? What materials are those stairs?
The stairs are made out of steel and concrete. So the treads are concrete, the runners are steel, and I don't know what the rise is. I know that there is building code standard, and that's what it means. I can't tell you off the top of my head what the rise is.
I'm just trying to think of the ease of these people going up and down stairs.
No, I understand. And it's that the stairways are inside the building envelope. They are not not protected. They are under the roof and they are within the building.
Except the wind.
I'm sorry?
Except for wind and rain and hail.
There are openings in the building, but they are not fully exposed, no. They are within the envelope of the building. And there is some refuge that the building offers.
I just hope you take care of those senior citizens if they need it. Thank you.
Are any of the, back to his question, are any of the first floor units ADA units?
Yes, that's dictated by building code. And that is requirement for every first floor unit to be wheelchair accessible. And there are also to be handicap units in a percentage of every single floor plan on the property.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was kind of hoping to be called before Mr. Goolsby there, but that didn't happen in my plan. So, because he's the materials guy, I'm not. But I was going to bring up a couple things that, number one, Kevin, thank you very much for presenting this tonight. Number one, I love the layout. I really do like the layout. It's a great use of the property. And like Mr. Goolsby there, I was actually going to say a good job on the parking. I really like the fact that it went above what we would normally be presented. And I also see where in the future that if needed, I can see areas there that under the way you've got it written up, if you needed to add more, there's ample opportunity for that. The thing that I do see that property there has been just a big pain in the neck for Universal City for a long time, and we as citizens and council have looked at opportunities and things to go in that property, and we're looking very much towards the future, Universal City wise. We want something really good for that property. With as much as I see here that I like, that's why I was hoping to get before Mr. Goolsby. I looked at what you presented as the construction, and to me, you said you've been doing this since the 70s. This looks like the 70s. And so I wasn't very impressed with the rendering that you have here. I would like to see something more modern. As you started showing the photos, that was getting interesting there. This to me, and I know it's a concept and everything else, but I would really like to see, if possible, a modernization of that, the looks. I'm not a builder. I was hoping for Goolsby because he's a materials man, but the facade of these looking more modern to bring us up in the direction that Universal City has been looking to go for years, and to go with the rest of the plan for our future plan. With that said, I really like the concept. I would really like to see a difference in the way the structure is put out, more modern. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Shelby, did you have another comment?
You got to have some.
What's the buffer between parking lot and on both corners and the abutting property? How much offset are we looking at between? So I know the property line goes right up to the houses that are there, which is the back side of the.
Yeah,
and
on
then
the
we've also got
backside,
Langley
you
Village.
have, I believe it's Park Olympias. What is it? Oh, Heritage Hill
Heritage,
subdivision. And then to the top, you have the Lincoln Park, and then on the bottom, you have the commercial.
Oh, there, yeah. So basically on the back against Heritage, how much the property and the houses behind.
It's my understanding that there is a 50 some odd foot drainage easement prior to even the property line. And then on that site plan rendering, then that's when our improvements would start with the detention pond, parking, and buildings being interior to that. I don't have the specific footage, but I mean, we're 100 plus 50 feet, 150 feet.
Okay.
Can we go back near where the detention pond is in that ballpark, possibly?
Can we go back to the slide that shows the satellite view? Okay, so I see the easement. There's a line of trees along the back of that. Are you trying to maintain?
It seems to, and I believe that the PL is really within that line of trees that creates that separation.
Oh, it is. Okay.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay, but if it wasn't, I mean, the goal is to try and maintain as many acceptable trees. I mean, obviously, I know there's scrubs and stuff that's been growing back there for decades.
Yes.
Okay.
And at the back of the property, there's also a cliff on the back of the property. So there is a high point at the back where the residents are really kind of just looking at a cliff once they get past the easement.
Okay.
The other thing I can add that based on the easement, the size of both parkings plus the drive aisle plus their setback, I mean, you're really looking at 136 feet from the first apartment building, minimum of first apartment building until you get to the fence of the person in the Heritage Hill subdivision.
I'm going to mention lighting earlier. That was what I forgot about earlier. So you're talking about downlighting LED. Is that mounted to the building, or are these going to be poles in the lot that shine towards the building? We're talking about lights that are going to shine from the buildings out to the lot.
Typically, you'll have both. So you'll have site lighting on the buildings themselves, and you'll also have pole lights within the paving area, depending on lighting study and what city engineering criteria would be, and to prevent any dark corners and things of that nature in an adequate lighting fashion. But all of those, whether it be pole lights or building lights that are exterior lights, would be of the downlight variety.
Okay.
And that's to minimize cast outside of RPO.
Okay. And this is more for the city. And don't take this wrong. I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I mean, obviously, we've done this commercial. I'm not against looking at an apartment development for this, but I always want to know the city's. And I know you wouldn't. I've heard it before. You wouldn't bring it to us if it wasn't a good idea. But I'm still gonna ask. We had hoped or probably discussed multiple times about a potential commercial or retail in this position.
Right, and as how many offers have we asked for commercial?
You have to tell me.
Zero. No.
What's that? Zero? Okay.
No. It is appropriate, it's mid-block, right, so it's appropriately placed for an apartment complex. Commercial, they want to be right on the intersection. So, if you want to move the city's water tower, you might be able to get some commercial there, or we have commercial on the other sides of that traffic signal. That's very important. The other thing that you have to understand is that the apartment concept is falling in with the plans that we have for the city to generally increase our density. Because we are landlocked, we can't go out much, so really at this point we kind of need to go up. Commercial retail would be great, but you have to remember that all of these people also use commercial and retail, and so you add in a benefit for the businesses in the city, especially in that general vicinity.
Thank you. And then the last question. White Conley's going to own the property for 3 to 5 years. I heard that correct?
Correct. An ownership entity that we are a part of, yes.
Okay, and then what about the management?
Management is a fee-based management that we hire to run them.
And is it somebody you use with, somebody?
It would be somebody that we have an existing relationship with.
Okay. Thank you.
We've got a couple different ones, but there's a lot of both local and regional and national based management companies that we have relationships with.
I guess there's a question, so they would be contracted to manage it for a period of time. If there's a problem with, say maybe they're not managing it to the same. And I don't know your management companies that you work with, so I'm just going to ask the question of, if they're not, holding up their end of the bargain, you'll have the ability to correct that.
Yes, because a project of this size and caliber is predicated on the economics of how it performs. I mean, it comes down to that pretty simply from my perspective in that instance. And I need a performance barring obviously a global economic issue that's out of everybody's control for that performance to be at a certain level or exceeded. And the companies that we work with from a management company have proven track records, not only with us, but with others in achieving just that because of what our desires for the property are and what it is from a whole time period and for what the actual product is to maintain it. They are capable of doing that, and they do very well.
Thank you. I do support the project. I think this is a great idea with some of the caveats that the council has brought up. Thank you very much.
Well, let's try to wrap this up as quickly as we can because we have so much more on the agenda this evening.
Backing up to 3 entities, any discussion on fencing?
Yes.
No, Ms. Goolsby, yes.
Perfect, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just had a couple of things. Number one, I think Mr. Neville would love it if that center building was a 4-story with an elevator. Two, I love the bus stop and how you incorporated that. Thank you. That is basically, I mean, that's just, it's desperately needed. Never say they did a good job on parking. Well, I didn't say they did a good job on parking. Always push for more parking spaces.
No, I did say that.
And then I really want to stress the things that like keeping them off of the property lines for the houses. And you know this, but again, at the end of the day, somebody's going to be, we can make more money if, and say, no, that Councilmember Goolsby said don't do that. So I would really like you to keep that in the back of your head. And then fencing, because that is, on our street front, I would really like to make sure that goes up, more than just simple. Just take that for whatever it's worth.
No, I understand.
Okay.
Right now, anything fronting out to Pat Booker, the plan is that would be of the wrought iron variety. And I would imagine that there would be a portion of masonry columns as well for a good bit of that.
And just understand that, and I don't want to scare you away, I'm sorry, Kim, I'm going to tell you, our soils suck around here, soil's awful. So understand that your columns are going to do this if you're not, okay.
My geotechnical engineer loves me.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. Mr. Vaughan, did you have anything to offer? Sir? Okay. I think you got some interesting discussions and comments from members of council. So the next step is up to you, obviously, is what you want to do with this. So really appreciate your concept tonight. This is an area that's been an eyesore for us for a long, long time. And if there can anything that can be done that's going to rectify that and beautify parts of that Booker Road, we'd be really, really happy to see that happen.
Appreciate that very much. Appreciate the forum and the time and the feedback.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is tab E. Consider the ballot for the Texas Municipal League Risk Pool Board of Trustees election. And what I will tell you in background is that the mayors of the makeup that constitute the Northeast Partnership met, and the discussion was pretty lengthy, and the group's consensus was that there are 4 individuals that they would like to have the names put forward. Council approves that I would then submit as our city's recommendation for the Texas Risk Pool. And place number 6 would be Miss Allison Hayward. She is with the council from the city of Shirts. Mayor Mary Dennis, who is an incumbent, she place number 7 for Live Oak. And then we have Marion Medrano, and then Opal Maldonado, I think is there. And those are all known entities from almost all of our mayors. So I'm suggesting that you all approve those particular 4 candidates, and we'll move on, and then I can send those names forward on behalf of our city for the Texas Risk Pool Board.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Najarian, second by Councilmember Goolsby. Any further discussion? All right, Chris, call the roll, please, ma'am.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Abstain.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and I'll press on then on behalf of the council, and those will be the 4 nominees that we submit from our city for Texas Senate. Okay, we've got lots of major items with the budget and the tax rate coming up in a minute. I'm going to suggest we take a quick 5-minute break, and we'll convene again 5 minutes after 8, so everybody needs to go to the restroom. You need to know where they are, and we'll come back right here and we'll attack the budget and the tax rate in 4 minutes. Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and reconvene now. Thanks for the short break. I think a lot of us needed a little time off. So we're going to continue on now with the next portion of our meetings. We go now to tab number E, which is discuss and to consider approval of the FY 2022-2023 budgets. I'll turn it over to our city manager, the presentation, and then we'll discuss that. And if anybody wanted to, from your citizens to be heard, you want to wait until after both the budget and the tax rate are presented. Okay, fine.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we have had numerous presentations on the budget, so we're not actually presenting that again. There's no numbers that have changed on that. The question is that, it's been a little bit of a topsy-turvy year with the tax freeze and our numbers coming in strange, and then the valuation being big, and then the tax form that the assessor's office gives us, and they calculate their rates, and then the other options that we have to calculate our rates. So I thank everyone, including the residents, for their indulgence in this process because it has been quite confusing. We've been told by other tax entities that when they have the tax freeze, that first year is very, very confusing, but we've been assured when we get a couple of years past that, we get back into a norm again, and then everybody has a better understanding on how everything's going to work. So with that saying, remember that when we had the 2022 tax rate calculation, it said that our no new revenue was 0.67, and we provided you with 4 options, and the council voted on the 0.65. I'm not going out to the 6 digits, I know some of you do that. And so we had to publish that by law because that was done. You noticed in my cover sheet, I said you have to present those numbers in your cover sheets tonight because that's what you voted on, and so that's what we had to put in the paper. But what we're here to discuss with you this evening is what is the tax rate that is needed to support the budget that we're hoping that you're going to approve this evening. And so it all comes down to tax rate. So we'll have that discussion first. When we went back in and looked at the tax rate, we thought maybe the best thing for us to do is start with where our current tax rate is today, 0.589, 398. Oh my God, I typed it a bazillion times. How can I not remember it? And start with there, and then have the discussion with you on where you think we need to go as a city in order to provide for this current budget and any other options that you might have in your mind as we move forward. So what we have here, and I apologize, it is very hard to read, is that on our tax revenue, we're showing at the point 589, 19 million rounding. Of that, 9.8 rent is the ad valorem tax revenue. Correct. So that's the magic number we're trying to get to on the tax, right? Because that's what we proposed in the budget. So the question is, how do we get to the 9.8 million or something near at or near whatever you decide for that particular number? So we started it off, if we go back to the next one. This one? No, the tax rate change. That's not good. So again, I apologize, it's very hard to read, but we're gonna blow things up. If you go up to where we have our proposed, when we went back and the mayor and I and Mr. Vaughan and Jessica met, we agreed on a couple of things. One, that, too big, that the valuation that we were going to use was the 1.4 million, I think it's 1.45, and that was provided by that's the non-frozen valuation for 2022, and then what we did in subsequent years is we anticipated a 4% increase in valuation. Why did we do a 4% increase in valuation? That's typically what you would see as a valuation increase from year to year, but we know that this year was an unusual year when everybody was at 10%, which is the cap they can go, and some people were even higher at 23%. Anyway, so we thought we would start there, and then the column E, which is the fourth column over, you see we have the frozen revenue. That is also the number that was provided to us by the taxing, which is 2 million if we round. So if we take our the non-frozen valuation, add tax rate, add in the 2 million for the frozen, that is a revenue of 10.9 million. And then what we thought was appropriate for council to have a discussion on is whatever tax rate you decide on tonight, we need to understand how that affects the frozen tax levy, and then we need to understand how it impacts the valuations and the revenue going forward. So with that, we have the 0.589398. I think want to call and saying, let's make a deal. But we are prepared on the bottom portion, when you put your, where it says rate, what we've done is we put in there that if you give us a particular number that you think you would like to see what the tax rate is, we can tell you what the valuation is, or what the revenue is from the non-frozen, and then add in the tax freeze to that. And then if you want to go to a lower rate than what the tax freeze is at, which is the 0.589, down below it will automatically calculate it, and it will change what your frozen revenue is for the 65 and over. And the question is, why are we discussing the tax levy freeze, right? Because if you lower the tax rate than what it is right now, that means that their level on their frozen goes down to that. So when you lower their level, if you continue to do that, then that means that those that are not 65 and over and disabled or are commercial business, then what happens is proportionally later, the bigger burden of the tax goes to those entities. So we just generally need to have that discussion. And before we have that, is there any particular questions anyone wants to ask me? Mr. Vaughan.
So you're saying that if somebody had a frozen tax ceiling last year and they paid $10 in tax, that their tax is not frozen, but their valuation is frozen. So if the rate goes down, then that's what I heard.
Their valuation is not frozen, because if you go on and look at their account, it says what their assessed value is, and it's higher.
Right.
And then it is what their taxable value is, and that's when you back out their homestead exemptions, and that's their taxable value. But what is frozen is their tax levy, which is the third column. Some people call it a tax ceiling. So if you owned a $100,000 house and last year, and your taxes that you paid to the city were $589 based on the 0.589 tax rate, and you got a change in your property value by 10%, which is now, let's say, 110%, you're still only paying $589 in taxes.
Okay.
So it's the tax levy that is frozen, not the valuation. However, their tax levy can change only if, in 3 instances, 1, they make a significant addition to their house, and then it's going to change whatever that new value is plus that, so their taxes will go up in that particular case, and then be frozen at that new dollar value. The other thing is that if they sold one house in Universal City and they moved into another house in Universal City and it was more expensive or more or less, then their tax levy becomes frozen at that point then when they move into it. The third way that their tax levy gets lowered is if the council adopts a tax rate less than what the tax rate was when their levy was frozen. So if you do something less than 0.589398, then for everybody 65 and over or disabled, they have a new tax levy, and it's at the lower rate.
So just to clarify, so let's say somebody was frozen and their house went up 10%, but we dropped the rate 1/1,000,000th of a decimal point on the rate. You're saying their tax would come down even though the multiplication of the rate times their valuation might still be more than what they paid last year. They would still get a tax cut. Is that what you're saying? Or would would the rate have to go down sufficient to offset their valuation before they would get a reduction?
So, again, once your tax valuation is frozen, it doesn't matter what the valuation is on your house. That's the dead and gone part. They are frozen at whatever tax levy or tax burden, whatever the word is, that they paid last year, that's where they're frozen. If their valuation goes up, they're not moving. If their valuation goes down, then they will benefit and they'll have a lower tax levy, but their tax valuation means nothing to the city anymore. They are frozen at their tax levy.
Agreed. So is there a formula in cell E15 or is that a
Yes.
fixed number?
Yes, there is a formula in cell, actually, if you change cell, yes, 15 rate, it will jump down below into the senior tax freeze levy, and it'll adjust that number as well. So throw out a number, Mr. Vaughan.
Well, I'm trying to understand what you're doing for the frozen, but let's just say 55 cents.
Okay.
So you don't have to type so many decimals.
Right, so you'll see the rate below changed, and so now the freeze levy for all of the disabled and 65 and over combined is now 1.9 million versus the 2 million.
And the value in B25 is coming from where?
The value in 25, yes, that was the one. So go to page, I'm sorry, you and I have other forms that some people wouldn't have. If you go to the BCAD tax papers for the levy that you and I and the mayor and Jessica were working off of, and you go to page, no, hang on, I'll tell you what page. I apologize to everyone in the audience. This is a lot of number crunching. Page 329.
I'm there.
Yes, and you go to where they have calculated the freeze and they do the approximate levy. And they do the plus 2 million.
Right.
If you go back up to what they have as the taxable value of 384 million and you multiply it by the 0.58939, that actually comes out to be 2,225,000. So what we've identified is that when they do the difference between the taxable is at that point they have not reduced their homestead exemptions from that particular number. So which is why if you did a straight 0.589, or the 385,000 times the rate, it won't come out to that amount. They've made other deductions within that.
Okay. I'll yield to someone else that has questions.
Grab your calculator and do it.
Again, one of the main
And
reasons.
we can run that on a spreadsheet too if everybody wants to see what we're talking about.
We're on the budget right now, but you said that we need to establish a basic tax rate to.
Right, because you're establishing a tax rate to support the budget. So it's conducive at this point that we have a discussion on both before you go in and actually do any discussion amongst yourselves and any voting.
So you're saying we need to basically come up with the tax rate before we can approve the budget as it's written, because the original budget, it was at 0.65, which we had to do by mandate and approve that. Okay, so I want to make sure
We're
understand where
recommending
we are.
as a staff that you lower the tax rate from what the appraisal district gave us. And we are recommending that you lower it from what some people call option 4 that you approved last time, which was 0.65. We think that we should have as a starting point for discussion the current tax rate.
Okay, Mr. Buck.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kristen, would you put up that summary of the revenues and the expenditures? I'm sorry, Jessica. I'm sorry, Jessica. Would you put that up for me, please? And I want to focus on the number that we would expect to bring in revenue based on keeping our tax rate exactly where it is right now.
Yes.
So, where is that number on there? Tax revenue?
It's included in line 5. Line 5 is all of our tax revenue.
Can you go
Do you have it broken
to the
out?
M&O? He's asking for the M&O.
Yeah, the
That's
INS
the
and the
number-
M&O.
That's the number that you're asking for. And again, as we make changes on the rate change tab, it will adjust these numbers as well, because we want you to see how it works through the process.
Okay, so I feel like I'm really loud here. So you've calculated our sales tax revenue and our ad valorem tax revenue to come out with those numbers that you just showed us a second ago.
Yes.
So if we keep it at 0.58, so something that's been bugging me over the last couple of weeks since we started doing this, I think of a balanced equation, okay? On one side of the equal sign is no new revenue. We're gonna bring in the exact same amount that we brought in. On the other side of the equal sign is the frozen property taxes for the over seniors, okay? Those two numbers are not gonna change. The only numbers that can change is the valuations of the non-frozen properties and the rate at which they are taxed.
Correct.
So if the valuations go up, the rate has to go down. Bear County, on the other hand, was telling us that although the values went up, in order to bring in the same amount of revenue, we would have to raise our property tax rate. That by definition is an unbalanced equation, and that can't exist.
Right, which is why in talking with, I think I've had a conversation with several of you, is we were able to get a consultant to run some numbers for us, and who was very well versed in doing calculations for cities that had the senior tax freeze. And so she was kind enough to run some numbers for us. Mr. Vaughan looked at her numbers, made some adjustments, again, which we appreciate. And so we were to get a better idea of how all that works together in terms of number crunching world, right? Or Christmas at the Vaughan house. So what we did is we recognized through those discussions and calculations that we could lower the tax rate separately from what the appraisal district was giving us as we must report numbers.
Right.
We have an option. So the option is again, starting at 1589398 our current, and then you'll have discussions with us on what you're comfortable doing as a tax rate.
Okay, so given the fact then that if we leave the tax rate exactly the same, we all know that the valuations have gone up significantly year over year from 2022. Our over 65 population will pay exactly the same as they did last year. Those of us that are not subject to the freeze are going to pay more if we leave the tax rate exactly where it is.
Because your valuation.
Because our valuations have gone up.
Right.
So rather than to generate no new revenue, we need to generate some new revenue because our budget is higher than it was last year.
Our budget is higher, but we have to be very frank about the discussion. Even if you would do the 0.589, remember I said, and again, this is what you need to wrap your head around, that in our budget that we presented to you, the ad valorem tax, that revenue that we needed to get to is 9.8 something million. And as you can see, if we put in the 0.589, it's telling you that your property tax revenue is going to be 10.9 million. So the question for council is do you want to lower the tax rate even more, or do you want that revenue or some supported revenue and add items into the budget, or have us approve the budget, which we hope you would do, and then bring back a revised budget at a later time.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Turner. Mr. Mayor, then I'm a fan of leaving the tax rate exactly where it is right now, given all the uncertainty that we're experiencing with the numbers coming from Bear County, the numbers that Phil is presenting, trying to wrap my own head around all of this. I'd be in favor of leaving the tax rate exactly the same as it was for last year, reevaluating next year what we see with the numbers, because then that tax rate calculation will have line 2 and line 20 will have some values in there. And given the historical experiences of the other cities that have experienced the tax rate, that have enacted the tax freeze, they said it's all discombobulated for a year or two, but then it all levels out and everything evens out in the subsequent years. I say I would be in favor of just leaving the tax rate exactly where it's exactly the same as it is right now, and then recalculating again next year.
Making a motion?
No,
We're just in discussion.
This is discussion.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Because what I want to do, anybody other right now? Because what I want to do after some more discussions, I want to let those individuals that signed up for citizens be heard to address this before we take any action at all.
So, well, Neville.
Okay, here's Mr. 101 and sandwiched in between Phil and Steve here, so see if I can dumb this down for me at least. Hopefully there's a couple of you on the same page as I am, that all those numbers out there are, just, we're not sure. Starting off, just to make things clear for me, a budget, like anything else, is you base it on what's coming in, what's going out, and based on numbers that we perceive to be correct, that could change, and depending on what number you're looking at. So I'm going from a number that says, okay, we've got to meet this 9.8 million. We don't want to have an increase in, making more money, and we don't want a loss at the end of the year. We're not sure how things are going to go, but we take our best guess. And over the years, you guys have been pretty good, pretty solid. So, in the same aspect, if you're looking to take it, I don't know where you are, Mr. Vaughan, about the. None of us really want to go anywhere close to a 7. 0.65 is like, do we have to? And keeping that 0.589 sounds really good. At the same time, if we decided to lower it, I'm just making, for instance, lower it and come out with a number that you deem would just balance everything. If the numbers didn't go right over the year due to costs and things like that, the possibility of us being in a deficit is very possible.
Yeah.
Great.
We'll cut expenditures before we'll run a deficit.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
We will reduce expenditures before we run in a deficit.
Okay.
That would not be good financial management.
No, it would. And as we've been told tonight, that this city has been very conservative and has a very good rating because of the fact of the type of budgets we've run in the past and how conservative we've been with our money. So you're looking at the 0.589 being a good point where it would cover.
I said that's an appropriate place to start for discussion.
Right.
So you have to recognize that our target is the 9.8 million. And if you read it at the 0.589, that your property tax revenue is 10.9. And so you have to decide as a council, do you not want the additional revenue? Or are there items that you want to add into the budget, or you want us to add into the budget if we amend it later, that you want to see in there for the use of that funds, or do you just want to lower the rate and lower any excess revenue?
Yeah, so I mean,
discussion that you all need to have.
And I do like just keeping that the same, especially to be able to approve the budget and look at the numbers later. I'm looking forward to seeing if Mr. Goolsby has anything to better establish a golden rate on this.
Well, let's move on now. Mr. Vaughan first, and then Mr. Shelby.
Sure, thank you. We're close on the calculation, so I'm not quite sure on the freeze that I agree, but I think it's a pretty small difference. I think the larger discussion is if we adopted a budget, the city told us what they wanted and it was 9.8, I think that's what we should ask for from our residents. I mean, there's no reason to ask for another million, or just because we can get another million, try to find something to spend it on. I don't think that would be the right course of action. And so I think we should work on the calculation to where the end number comes out is what we had in the budget, the 9.851. I have a calculation that I get in front of you, which is going to be a little bit different than theirs just because of the freeze. And what I'll point out on that is that these numbers already have some contingencies built into them. So there's a lot of property that's under protest, and so they back out that property, which historically we haven't lost a lot of that to protest. So we've been able to actually get some of that tax. So depending on where we adopt the rate, somewhere around 260,000, that's a cushion in revenue that we might have, assuming the protests go well in the city's favor. There's also a contingency for people that may not pay, and that's a number that the tax office gives us. It's about 40,000. So between those two numbers, there's still a $300,000 cushion to where if we miss it a little bit, those could make it up. Plus, we have about 17 months in reserves, so if we go a little bit short on the revenues, on the property tax revenue, we have plenty to cover a 1-year blip, so that would just be my recommendation. So, you have motions or?
No, right now we're still in the discussion, and before we do anything, I want to let the citizens that have signed up to get a chance to address council as well. So let's continue our discussion. Mr. Shelby, then Mr. Thornton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So clarify for me, we're saying 9.8 million, but we're showing the M&O and the INS. The 9.8 million covers both the M&O and the INS? That's what we need to bring in? Okay, that's why I just want to make sure I understood that correctly. Because I'm more worried about the M&O than I am the INS. The INS is a requirement.
The INS, we have to have it, right? It's a fixed rate.
Right.
You have to have that. So it is the M&O that is the only one that you're going to be fluctuating.
Right, that's what I want to make sure we clarify. But you are combining both for the number that we're trying to hit.
Right.
So what I want to ask is how we got from 0.65 to 0.58 and we're now $1 million positive versus when we're talking about the Goolsby rate, we were going to be like $4.
Right, because of the anticipation in the tax rate that was used. And so what we did is, after meeting with our consultant, she showed us a different way on how to calculate the tax rate without using the county's numbers. And that's the process that we went through.
Okay. And so I'm going to ask the other hard question, because I won't be 65 for 19 years. If we lower the tax rate, which, you know, I'm not against having a lower tax rate. I mean, we all like to have a little bit more money in our pocket. I always ask the question, you know, I want to make sure the city has enough to provide the services that we have today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the year. I want to, when the sewer line's backing up on my street, I want to know that somebody's going to show up and clean it out so that it doesn't roll down the street when the house next door to me catches on fire. I call 911 and the fire department shows up. And when I call 911 and I need police service, the police department shows up. But I also know that we do a lot of services in events around the city as well. Not all of its tax comes from tax revenue, but I just want to make sure that none of that is going to change. Because that is the splash pad, snow fest, splash fest, pumpkin patch. I mean, everything that happens in the city is a huge benefit for our citizens. And I don't think it's worth jeopardizing any of that, because it's part of what it's like to live in Universal City. From the stellar service that our public works provides, the stellar service that our police department, our fire department, our events staff, everything. I want to make sure that we are not stepping away from any of that.
Right.
But I want to make sure that for those of us who are not 65 and older and we're disabled, if we do lower the tax rate below, we are lowering the bar on that rate. And if something comes up, well, we can only without a vote, we can only ever raise it 3.5. So something comes up, we run through another bad year of inflation, and everything gets more expensive. We can only go up 3.5, and that 3.5 will only go against those of us who are under 65 and commercial businesses.
Correct.
So it does increase the burden on the rest of the city if we go the opposite direction, long term. Now, I just want to make sure that's said out loud, because as we increase burden on our under 65, as we increase burden on our businesses, people are going to maybe not want to live here, maybe not want to open a business here, maybe not continue to have a business here, which in the long term will affect all of us. So, do I not want to raise taxes? I mean, or do I want to lower taxes? Sure, but I want to think about it from a long-term plan as well. Not just this year.
Yeah, which is why we tried to carry it out for 5 additional years, so that as a council, you could understand what that changes numbers at in the future as well. Because, you know, obviously we budgeted this year based on what we think are, what we think the needs of the community are in order to get the jobs done that they need to do. But there's always items that we don't have in this year's budget that will come up in a future year. I always use the big ticket item of the fire truck, right? It's one of the most expensive pieces of equipment that we purchase. I'm sorry, Chief Cosseres. What is the cost of a fire truck these days?
It's a moving target.
It's a moving target. What was it the last time you bought?
Our last purchase was about $584,000.
But that was not
For an engine, not a ladder.
for an engine, so you're just about ready to replace a ladder truck.
Ladder truck is upwards of 1.5 million.
1.5 million, and that, we know it's a moving target. But how long before you get a new fire truck? If you put an order in today?
It is upwards of 20 to 24 months at the moment.
Right, so those are the big ticket items that, you know, we think about moving forward as well. So, you know, whether you start funding that now or you start funding that later, that's the discussion, you know, that staff or direction will take from council.
Well, because we financed the last fire truck, did we not?
Yes, we did.
We'd rather not do that.
Still paying for it, yes. Yeah, we would rather not.
It's just something to think about. I mean, you know, like I said, I'd love to pay less property taxes. Absolutely love it. But I think I want to think about it from the long term as well. For when I turn 65, and then I've got another generation behind me that is now carrying the additional burden that I'm no longer going to, any additional things that we want as a city, that burden will fall upon everybody else. Even though I'll still be able to use it at 65, I'm not going to get banned from using the library.
But understand that your frozen levy will be whatever the tax rate is at that date.
Correct, right. But anything after that.
Yes. And so, in going along with the long-term thinking, which, you know, is kind of incumbent upon us to do that, I talked about the fire truck, but we've had lots of presentations on other developments that we, you know, hope will come to fruition. Sometimes those get done in 24 months, sometimes those get done in 36 or 48 months, depending on the type of development that it is. The other thing that you have to factor is as those developments come in, you have to understand that you need the public works staff to provide for those roads and the markings. You need the fire capacity to meet the demand on the fire. You need the police because, you know, you have extra traffic in the city. And so, you know, it's a snowball effect. But yeah, you have to think long term because as the city grows up and hopefully out a little bit more, there is going to be a bigger strain on the goods and services that we provide. And there may be, you know, all those new residents and businesses that come in, they have an expectation of services as well. And so we have to make sure that we plan for that.
The 4% increase is on, I guess, can we go back to that screen that had the formulas in it? So the non-frozen value, 4% increase. So that increase, going back to the calculation that we always get, if the values across the board of existing properties goes up 4%, the tax rate, all things being equal, the tax rate per 100 will go down.
Yes.
Because we have to start from the no new revenue number every year. I mean, that calculation has to happen. This is the no new revenue number, meaning that's where we are. We can choose to go lower, but we can only go 3.5% without going to the voters.
Correct.
In the past years, it's been 7.
It was
Yours 8%. That's right. We did 7 something, 7.9. So what I'm looking at, and I want to make sure I understand, is if the 4% tax increase it's happening every single one of the years, but the tax rate's staying the same, that the tax rate wouldn't stay the same. That number would go down roughly 4% each year.
You would hope that it would go down, but again, unless you're a prognosticator or you have a very good crystal ball, that's assuming that there are no other large item expenditures or catastrophes or whatever it is that the city happens to do. You also have to remember that, you know, we proposed the street bond election in November, that as that gets added in, that your debt service rate is going to go up. So if your debt service rate goes up, you still may have a little increase, but you have the fudge is in the M&O.
Right, but that's why I want to focus more on the M&O rate than the INS. The only way we control INS is not by getting a bond approval from the citizens, it's by issuing
debt.
Right. So if we run into more problems where we have to issue debt, we'll be raising the taxes and it'll be out of our control. We have to, we need money, so we have to borrow. But the M&O rate, which I know we're mixing it in here. I mean, that's the rate we're talking about, the 0.47 or whatever. Is really what we're talking about changing. That's the number that would potentially, if the property values go up 4%, all things being equal, that number will go down 4%. Now, if we borrow money, the INS will go up and offset that, or however that works. But generally speaking. So I still look at the total revenue ticking up in that number. So I feel like I look at those numbers and think they're not really 100% accurate because the tax rate would go down.
Well, it's hard to be 100% accurate. I mean, I know that math is considered a science.
Within
but there are variations within that. So even when we did the valuations for the non-frozen, I believe we added in 4% and we estimated 30 million in new properties being added to the tax roll as well. That's really a big unknown for us, right? They gave an apartment presentation. Is that going to be ready in 3 years or 4 years? We don't know. Typically it's 3 years.
But that doesn't affect the no new revenue. It's
Correct.
It's a new property, so it's just generally more money that the city gets.
The first year it's on.
Well, I voiced my concerns. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Man, you crushed just about everyone that can.
You stole mine earlier.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, because just know that y'all keep lovingly terming it the Goolsby rate. I'm also I'm not a 65 yet. I'm almost there, but I own a house and a business. So I also look at this from the multiple standpoints. So now we get double taxed, right? I mean, because it doesn't matter where the business goes, I'll still be taxed on it. But it's a frustration because I don't want to continue to see this. I don't want to increase for people if we don't have to. And I want that balanced budget. I want that real bad. And no, we don't have a crystal ball that tells us how long until we feel it out. So.
Right, and one of the questions, and it's usually in the audit, and it comes from the appraisal district, and one of the things that you see in the audit is what is the 10 highest valued properties in the city. I don't know why. You could probably tell us why they asked that. But that's one of the questions we get asked from the auditor every year. And oddly enough, the appraisal district provides us with that information. The highest valued properties that we have in the city are apartments, with the exception of one place that we shop that is in Bentonville.
And I do want to say this, that people get frustrated with, I hear complaints about, the city spends money on this, it spends money on that. Take a walk down the Mission trails and see what their county does with their water department buildings and things like that. I mean, they're monuments to themselves, and I appreciate that we don't do that. So I'm not going to complain about your buildings. So I'm good, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to quit rambling for now.
Okay. I would like to invite those individuals that signed up to citizens be heard now. Let's hear from you, and then we'll continue the discussion, and we'll move on from there. So, Ms. Bowman, you were the first one.
Is this on? Because it's red.
No, then push the red. Okay, there you go.
Gotcha. All right, so I wish I could say I was like super shocked at what happened tonight, but I'm really not. You guys all agreed to 9.85 million. That's exactly what was published to the public, that exact number, 9.85 million for the public hearing. We all gave you passionate pleas on how everything has gone up, how everyone is struggling right now, and yet I know it's just a starting rate, but 0.58 is just not acceptable. You're over $1 million over budget, and there's just not, to me, a reason that this year we need to be over budget by $1 million. So I'm pretty much at the same exact plea that I had at the public hearing, that I've had at the multiple hearings that you've all heard me say before. You agreed on a balanced budget, not taking away anything, because she's getting exactly what she asked for in her budget. The city is getting exactly what they asked for in their budget. So all we're asking you to do is balance it so that you get your 9.5 million. I understand that we're concerned about future generations and what's going to happen in future years, but guess what? We do this every single year, which means next year if we need to go up, we go up. There's definitely solutions, or you cut back your budget and you finally have to, maybe not get every single thing you asked for, since it seems like in the history of where we've been, there's not been a lot of discussion on not giving someone their budget. So you guys have opportunities to do things. We're asking you for 1 year to stick with your 9.85 and nothing else more. And while I appreciate that we're concerned about the 65 and over tax freeze, it's been talked about in Congress and several other places that the whole state might get a 65 and over freeze. So it's going to be everyone's problem. And on top of that, there are other places that have gone lower on their tax rate, like Shirts and other cities around us that have literally dropped theirs than they were last year to cover that inflation that everyone's getting for houses. So it's not like it's unheard of for a city to drop lower than what we've lowered before. So I'm just hoping that you guys stick with your balanced budget, stick with what you voted on before, take what you need, and be done with it. Thanks.
Nicholas.
Thank you. My name is Nicholas Coleman. Thanks to my wife. I'm also at 12807 El Dorado. I would like to say I 100% agree with my wife. And then I would also like to make a point when everyone continues to talk about, well, we're going to drop the rate. Do you not realize, besides the seniors who deserve it, as in milk's gone up, everything's gone up. So they're still paying more than they did last year, maybe just not to the government, but they're paying it to everyone else. And also, you lower the tax rate, guess what? They asked for more. They're getting more. You're still going to get more money from me, even if you lower the tax rate to a balanced budget. You did not lower the budget less than you did last year. So they will still get more money from us. It baffles my mind that it doesn't seem like most of you understand that. We're still going to pay more unless you're a senior citizen. So I would hope you would adopt what you did last time, which was a balanced budget. And every single one of you said that that's what you're going to go with. You even made a point to say, 65, we don't care about that. We're talking about $9.85 million. You made a point to mention that. And I would hope you keep it at this point tonight. Thank you.
Vince?
My name's Ken. I live at 13410 Adonis. And first, Kim, I want to thank you for your transparency. I mean, you were basically trying to say we need to adopt a tax rate that matches the revenues that we need. And I appreciate your comments. The dislike of the 65 and older and disabled tax freeze was kind of surprising to me. But I think the issue at hand is, what do you need? I think prior there was discussion when we might have a surplus, and the comment was, oh, we'll find some way to spend that, no problem, don't worry about it. But when the discussion started talking about, oops, maybe this was going to impact me somehow, then there got to be some concern about a few more dollars maybe in the tax budget for the individual. So I recommend that you adopt a tax rate that gives you the money that you need. Prior to that, my suggestion was if you adopt a tax rate that's higher and you pull in 10.8 instead of 9.8, then use that 10.8 to lower the tax burden next year. You apply it towards debt service, or you find a way to use that million to reduce the property tax revenue that you need for the next fiscal year, or you return the excess money that you collected and didn't need back to the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rubel, did you want to address council, sir?
I wasn't on board for the second. I love it. I have nothing more to say.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Ms. Aguilar?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Kim Iglehart. I live at 736 Garden Drive. Before I get into what I did want to say, as far as the frozen taxes, people whose taxes are frozen are not going to see a reduction in what they pay in their tax levy unless you drop the tax rate to approximately 53 cents. We don't have to stick at 589 to keep us at what we're currently paying. At the last council meeting, this council committed to a balanced budget, no surplus. That was the vote. It wasn't for 65 cents because they said we needed 65 cents to balance the budget. Now they're saying we need 0.589 cents with a $1.1 million surplus. Maybe 2 weeks from now they can come back to the lower numbers yet because the numbers keep shifting. Anyway, at that same council meeting, you reassured us that we have nothing to worry about as far as the $30 million street bond proposition is concerned, as you will be the oversight every step of the way. You asked us to trust in you, to do the job that we elected you to do. Now we are hearing this discussion that totally blows my mind. Councilman Vaughan, a CPA by trade, brings a level of financial expertise to this council that is of great benefit to our city. If a majority of his fellow council members cannot recognize this fact and support him this evening, and instead opts to support staff's proposal for a $1.1 million budget surplus, how in God's green earth are we supposed to have confidence in your oversight of the $30 million street bond proposition?
Okay. Those are the individuals that I offered the opportunity to speak before we take any more action at all. And again, what was initially presented was a budget based on 0.65 tax rates to balance the budget exactly what some of you are indicating that's what you're interested in. Okay, that's 0.65, which is higher than 0.58, last year's rate. Okay, so, but the numbers are really difficult to explain, and I think we've all experienced that over the past couple of months for sure. So what council is facing with right now is we need to take a look at what we think is the most equitable rate that will be the best benefit to all of you. And if there is a surplus, I will tell you, we have looked at the kinds of needs we have in this community. It's way, 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 way above that balanced budget that we originally approved. And that was because we needed to publish all that material way beforehand. Okay, so our needs in the community are significantly higher than that balanced budget we proposed. We did that because we wanted to make sure that was an equitable way to look at it. And now council has come and received this from staff that says if we stay at last year's level, we will have this instead of 9.8, it'll be 10 point. There's a huge need for that extra money. And that could happen in a budget revision. Mr. Rubel, please. Please.
Sir, you spend money on on beverage cups, the golf course, on a general fund.
Mr. Rubel, we cannot discuss that, sir. I appreciate your interest, but no. Thank you very much. This is our discussion, and you had your opportunity and I'm not trying to knock you down, sir, at all. We have to stay on the procedures. So we understand, we've heard you many times, certainly understand. Thank you, appreciate it.
I appreciate the procedure of the workshop.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we've heard from the members now. This is, what would you like for us to do now, staff? What is your next step? Because we're on the budget right now.
Right, again, well, budget and tax rate, I think we need to keep the discussion running parallel so we all understand where we are. So again, we started you off at last year's tax rate. Now the discussion amongst council is going to be, what are you going to set the tax rate at?
Okay. Okay, I think we're cool. Let me go to Mr. Goolsby and Mr. Vaughan.
Thank you. So you've got the cool little spreadsheet up there, right?
Yeah.
And that's why y'all brought it.
Give us a number.
So we can plug in a number and see where that falls.
Yes, sir.
Bill, what's that number?
Well, the tax-free wrinkle, it's not gonna give the number, but it would be 538-ish,
Well, let's
but
put
they're gonna
in
have to plug the,
Put in 538-ish, 000.
so then a little less than that.
So then you have to go down and look at the freeze levy, then drops to 1.865, and then go back up to the revenue goes to 9.993390.
Right, so then take a little bit more off. I would imagine that you've done the calculation to figure out what it would be to get to 9.85. I don't know if you know that number, but if you don't, I guess we could just keep playing with it. If that's where you're trying to get those is what would the number be?
Yeah, it's hard. You have to do a lot of number changing to get in.
Yeah, because, I mean, I want to see where that number lands, but then I also want to see what that, and again, I want to, because that's going to tell us for today, right? But I do want to know, what does that do on in 5 years? We're not built out yet. We're still going to have a lot more properties coming in, but not a lot. I mean, there's still going to be properties coming in. So there is no perfect solution. I did not know that whenever these numbers came in, that was going to drop a certain percentage to where that's now always going to be this low. Right?
Are you talking about
The seniors, if we
Yes.
drop
No.
this?
If you drop it, that's their new level, yes, sir.
Yeah, we do disagree on that.
next year. So levy's not closed.
If you take someone who has a valuation of 200,000 per se, and they went up 10%, if your rate stays the same, then they're gonna pay the same. But if your rate goes down a couple of percentage points, you multiply it times their new valuation, and they're still gonna have a higher, it would calculate to be a higher tax than what they paid last year, so they would just pay last year. So in order for them to have a decrease, if their valuation's going up, then you've got to drop the rate more than what their valuation went up before they pay less than what they paid last year. And so in order to, all the homeowners, essentially, the homeowner's the easy one, because a lot of them went up more than 10%.
Right.
But we're only allowed to tax that 10% this year. So if you just kind of assume all homeowners went up 10%, then your rate has to basically drop 10%, just round numbers, to before you hit that point to where you're going below. And so if you think 10% under 58.9, as you were last year, would be under 53 somewhere, would be kind of that break point where you might have frozen people start paying a little bit less. I think it's also important to note, though, that we brought up about the caps that you can go up every year. So there's a 3.5 general rule that you can only go up. But if we don't use the 3.5 this year, then we can use that 3.5 anytime in the next 3 years. So
we're banking at points. You go up 7.
Exactly.
That was the new law. That's correct.
So it's not like you lose it per se, and then you also grab new properties too. So there's more that there could be in the future.
Is that like a constant rollover? Is that only a year and 3 years?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, just for 3 years. Okay, so you know what, I'm gonna throw myself on the sword. And so I'm looking online at my house valuation for last year, which my taxable value was $517,000. And so in city taxes, I paid $2,975, right? So then that was in 2021. Now I go to my 2022 valuation, which is where the senior freeze went in. My property value went up $130,000, believe it or not. But guess how much taxes I'm paying this year? $2,975. So even though my husband's 65 and over. Our valuation went up $130,000, but we're not paying any more in taxes. We are frozen at that levy forever.
No
If our
argument
house
there.
goes up another 100,000 next year or another 10%, we are frozen at that levy. If you are 65 and over or disabled, it doesn't matter how much the property valuation goes up. You are frozen at that levy.
Well, I'm really curious to see, to hear more about this, getting to that balanced budget. I mean, that number is 5.3. Oh, I like it. I like all the zeros. Is that 538?
000. You didn't have those last 3 digits. We put 0.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to clarify that when I said I want to leave the tax rate the same, I'm open to the possibility that we are wrong. I'm absolutely convinced that the numbers that came from Bear County are incorrect. What do you think, Kim, is the possibility that our calculations are wrong? Because we are essentially going against Bear County.
Yeah.
We're telling Bear County, no, you're wrong. And I applaud that. But I'm also open to the possibility that we are wrong. So are we potentially taking a risk of being wrong and having a significant shortfall in our funds? And that, Mr. Mayor, was my point of trying to ensure that we have the money that we need to operate. Do I want us to have a balanced budget? Absolutely. I think we should. But I'm concerned about the possibility that we are wrong with our calculation. That is the reason that I advocated for. Sorry?
I don't think we're wrong, which is why when we went out with the consultant and had them run their numbers and then we have verified multiple times, I don't think we're wrong on our numbers.
So Jessica, could you put Mr. Vaughn's number into that?
She did. Okay.
The 538555?
Oh, was it 555 or 000?
Well, I'm trying to use your formula.
Oh.
So it would, whatever to get settled F15 to the 9851. So it would be a little bit less than this, so 537 something.
To get within a shotgun blast range of that 9.85 figure that we have put in our budget. So right now 538000 was higher. So let's go to 537. 000. We're getting there. Can we go to 535 000? That's still 9.9. What if we go to 0.53053 even? There's 9.8. And that looks very much like the much maligned Goolsby rate.
Right, it's still a tad bit of a calculation.
Hang on, I gotta do it because I'm not on the Wi-Fi, so it's not linked.
I appreciate you doing this for us, Jessica.
No problem.
And Ms. Turner, while she's doing that, how much of an operating reserve do we have in the city?
So according to our auditors, 12 months.
So if we ended up coming up, so let's say we do make a mistake. Let's say we set this at 53000, and we make a mistake. And we end up not bringing in $1 million that we believed we were going to bring in. You said we would cut expenses before we would run a deficit, but are we running a deficit if we have the reserves built into our capabilities? Because that's why we have a reserve, right? There's unforeseen circumstances.
Emergencies, as we like to call them.
Okay. Train crash at the train crossing, something like that.
Look at Jackson, Mississippi as an example. What just happened in Jackson.
Okay, so Ms. Jessica is saying the point, whatever last number you gave us.
0.53000.
Yeah, you have to run it over to the budget page, which says that you're running a deficit of $2,000.
$2,000.
So it needs to have a slight adjustment.
It needs to be a little bit higher.
532. And I'm hearing all of these numbers for the first time tonight. I even called you on the phone today and asked you, what are our numbers? Did we recalculate all those numbers? Did we recalculate the de minimis tax rate? Did we recalculate the no new revenue rate? Is that still 2,000? Sorry, so now we're over budget. So now we have a surplus of 34 grand?
Correct.
So 531 and I'm done. 531 and I'm done.
We're doing a lot of number changing to get to zero.
So wait, we were at a higher tax rate and we were at a surplus of $4,000. We lowered the tax rate, but our surplus went up. How did that happen?
No, it went down. It went down.
It was
32,000.
34. Oh, it's 32,000?
It was 32, now 16.
Okay, I'm sorry. Then I must have looked at the wrong number before. What was it when we had it at 53 even?
2 grand less than what we.
It was we were at a deficit and we cannot have a budget that's at a deficit. It can't be approved.
Okay, so, and 531 generates 16,000 of surplus?
Based on the calculation.
531 generates $16,000 of revenue. 5305. You said you were done. This is what everybody has asked us to do. I am a representative of the residents of Universal City. This is what the residents have asked us for.
And this is what we've been running.
And you said
That's
that.
why we built the spreadsheet.
And you said that the 5.9 was a starting point for intelligence. Okay, all right.
He's
I get my feel bad for really easy, as everybody knows.
7,000.
7,000, all right. Done. 0.5305.
Go back. You said 0.530500.
Yes.
Okay, so now go to the, again, anybody else want to throw a number out? We don't care. We just have to remember what everybody said. You're writing it down, thank you.
Book.
5305. Mr. Goolsby, final question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, do we have, do you feel like is there any other, like, wiggle room, like what Councilmember Vaughan was talking about with the properties under protest? There's still numbers that aren't taken into account.
No, the protests are done, and so you have to understand the protest value that is on there is they have to take the lesser of two. One is what does the appraisal district say the taxable value is, which is usually a higher number. And then when you go into protest, then the question is what did you say that it should be? And what they give us is the lowest of those two numbers. So somewhere between here and there, they're going to end up somewhere right in here.
Okay. So just to make sure, I think, because like Councilmember Shelby says, sometimes things just have to be said out loud. We have a list of items that are on our wish list that we don't put into this budget. So when Ms. Turner says, I could spend that money, she could. I could at my office as well if I had a budget surplus. I could easily spend that money. So don't think that she's being flippant, saying that, well, we'll just give everybody a raise. No, that's not it. We have a wish list. I mean, I know that.
I have it if you want me.
No, it's okay. So don't think that's a flippant comment, because my gosh, we could spend that money. Then the other thing is that I heard people that were upset about the fact that we're spending more money this year than we did last year. Well, who isn't? The city is not immune. The city is not immune to having to pay extra for things. So, guys, they came to us. We've said that we're going to find that rate. I feel like we've almost found that rate. If he would have given it a few more shots.
I'll keep going.
So I am very nervous, but as an architect, when we put our budgets together, we have a contingency. But we've already got a contingency in this. So, you know, it's scary, but I also want to make sure that we take care of everybody out there. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
I definitely want a balanced budget too. We all do. One thing that was brought up was about having the money in the reserves. I mean, if something goes wrong, can we take that out? Sure we can. Is that wise? I don't think so at all. As we talked about it earlier tonight, that our credit rating and the strength of the city is what we have in reserves. If we start pulling from that, that's going to tell our debtors something that we don't want them to think that we're not able to control the budget, and we're starting to pull from reserves to do that. I'm not sure what the number is going to be. I'm not sure what that is, but I really would caution about anything that would have the possibility of having to take from those reserves. I think, some people they say, well, this city has, we can go down there 6 months reserves. We're not every city. Every city is different. We're by a military base, everything's different. The 1 year, I believe, has secured us great rates, and still been very conservative. If something happened today, we have the money. We had a disaster, we have the money to take care of that. We start messing with that, and so I would just go against that. So I'm going to throw out something real stupid here, because I can. What about the mix between the two, where we've got our rate going on here, what the M&O we were talking about before, the 0.65, M&O being 0.544,577, and the INS at 0.1162.
You can't change the INS.
I understand that.
Thank you.
I understand that. Puts us at that 6 point. Why don't we just look at the M&O and do a 5.44?
That would
Pop that in.
That would put you back at 0.65.
No, it wouldn't. I'm talking about taking that INS figure out. We're talking about a 5.89. We're talking about a 5.38. We're talking about a 5.305. 5.544. Which would include the INS. And of course, I just went up on everybody, so you're all looking at me like, I have to rush myself to the car when I get out of here. I don't want to make more revenue off of the budget, but at the same time, again, and I strongly say this, I don't want to get to a situation where we end up dipping into our rainy day fund. That to me, a rainy day fund is the right. Our contingency fund, whatever you want to call it, is extremely important. I'll leave it there.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, we'll start. Because we're all throwing numbers around here. Somebody can correct me, city staff can correct me if I'm incorrect here, but if I have a $100,000 home and my tax rate is 0.59398, I'm going to pay $589.39 of taxes for 1 year. If it's 5.3, wait, did that change 5.44? I thought that was 5.3.
Yeah, that's what he asked.
Okay, sorry. So earlier it was 53050. So if we lowered it from 58939 to 53050, it's going to save a total of $50.89 for the year, which comes out to about $5 a month. We are not talking about a meal a month for somebody with a $100,000 home.
Used to be a kid in the Oregon dog inside the kid isn't anymore.
Well, one person.
Yeah.
One buy you a cup of coffee. Unless you go to get like dollars or a gas station coffee. Maybe you get half of that. I just want to make sure we're talking about that. My house is worth no, I fought it. It should have been 300,000. It's like a little bit less than that. So it's going to cost me about $14 difference in that change a month. That will fill my tank with more than a quarter of gas. These are small amounts of money here we're talking about. But as a community, when we are pooling our money together as a community, which is what you do when you pay taxes, we're pooling our money into the city, which provides services to us, which provides our roads, everything for us. That is the whole purpose of a city with citizens and a community. We are working together. I don't have a problem paying $14 more a month to make sure that if there is something we need to get done that we've been putting off, and I'm going to ask you, you said you brought the wish list? I want to hear it. What have we not been able to do?
So these are the items that were requested that did not get put in the budget.
Requested by?
This is department heads.
Okay.
Not by me, but by the department heads.
Okay.
So, we've been trying for about 15 years to get to 7 firemen per shift. And so we would have added one more firefighter, which would have gotten us there, but we didn't do that. The police department only has 2 CID police officers. We really needed a 3rd because of the caseload that they carried. That didn't make it. We have more diesel equipment in the city than we've ever had before, but we don't have a diesel mechanic, but I didn't put that in the budget. We're just making do with outside contracts. We have more parks than we've ever had before. We've had more park improvements and equipment. We need more parks personnel. I put in 1, cut 1. People are always asking for more code compliance. I did not put a code compliance officer in there. There's been discussion that we need to have more people handling our social media and our website and our event marketing. That didn't happen in the budget. We do have a technology replacement budget, which is for desktops, which we haven't been doing, but we need to do because we know that Microsoft is changing their software programs, so we'll have to replace all of them sometime in the next 5 years. That we did add in. Fire truck, that did get in. Of course, always asking for street maintenance budget increase, and we left it where it was. There has been some discussion, and it's kind of happened in here about how much Kristen has to do in terms of city clerk, open records requests, and then events and doing the EDC. She wears a lot of hats. There was some discussion about taking her city clerk and open records and making that a separate position, and then she did EDC and events. That didn't happen. And then we've had discussion on the aviation district plans. What, the EDC is pretty much propelling that forward. We could have added something in for the city for that as well. There's always been discussion about doing a traffic analysis on Kitty Hawk on the other side of 1604 to figure out where a traffic light needs to be installed. We didn't add that in. A technology coordinator. There's been some discussion about electronic signage in different areas of the city rather than just the one that we have in front of the Walmart. That didn't happen. A dedicated turn lane at 1604 and Pat Booker Road for the people that want to turn right. That didn't happen. And then some general discussion about improving, adding more landscape islands in the city for beautification. Those are the items that we did not include in the budget.
So the right turn, then that's a good, I'm glad you mentioned that. The right turn lane that would have freed up all the traffic that backs up past Buckingham Village is not in the budget.
Well, we're hoping that,
We're hoping.
Kristen, there she is. No, we're not hoping. So Kristen added some engineering expenses for that in the EDC budget since it's a commercial enterprise, but that is just for the engineering. We don't know the actual cost of that yet.
Okay.
Remember, we would hope that TxDOT would do it when we did Loop 1604 or 35 in that area, and they said, no, it's not in their budget.
And we just talked about putting an apartment complex right there. Or somebody else putting an apartment
In the
complex
general
right there.
vicinity.
Yes. In the area where we already have a traffic problem.
So every year, the budget items are this long, and we have to decide, what are the basic necessities. So we stuck with the basic necessities. But it doesn't mean any of these things are going to go away. The need for them will always be.
So my only additional thought, and Mr. Mitz mentioned this, and I kind of like this idea. It's not a horrible idea because it will affect the tax rate. Is if we have a surplus, we can pay off debt. And if we reduce our bond debt, it reduces the INS tax rate. It helps everybody. So there is a way that if we are wrong or we're right, or we're not wrong, or we're not right, whichever we land on, because we've been doing this for months, and we have to believe somebody at some point has the right numbers. At some point, we have to take a leap of faith that somebody has the right numbers. Who that person is, I don't know. I don't want to end up with a shortfall. I don't want to take the chance. I'm too conservative. I'd rather put some money away than have to take it out of reserves. And if we end up with a substantial amount, well, let's pay off some debt. That's what I do in my personal. I have extra money, I pay off my debt. I have less debt, I have less burden. I can do other things in my budget. And yes, that's a personal budget that is about this big compared to what the city spends. I'm completely aware of that. And yes, I am aware that people that are 65 and older have the potential to be on fixed incomes. I completely understand that. I also know that when I was a kid, my dad was telling me to save and put away money for retirement, that he said, one thing you can always plan on is death and taxes. So I'm planning on things getting more expensive. And they're never going to stop getting more expensive. They've never stopped getting more expensive. So for $14.72 a month, I'm willing, as a citizen taxpayer, to take on that burden so that we can continue to make sure that we have what we need as a city to address things that may come up. Things that we want to get done, things that we've tried to get done and not been able to get done. I've seen the list every year, and I've seen every year how much of it doesn't get done. And we just keep kicking the can down the road. And the stuff that we didn't get done 5 years ago is now 3 times as expensive, roughly. I mean, it's all more expensive. The longer we put it down the road, the more expensive it gets. I'm not saying if 0.58 means that we have 1.2 million extra, or whatever it was. I don't know, we swapped the numbers around. Tell me how much extra that 5.8 potentially brings in.
sorry, 1 second.
Okay, well, I'm trying to calculate that, Phil, you got something else?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that to put some numbers to it, we talked about the reserves. So our last audit, the general fund had 17.7 million in it. And some of that has some strings on it. It's a little questionable in terms of how stringy those are. But if the staff's confident in their calculation, let's say we missed it 200,000. That's a drop in the bucket on 17.7 million. I think we should take the side of erring on the side of our taxpayers. Because we can. And that we're relying on the staff and their formula, but if we miss something, that's in there. I also want to keep in mind that we just increased utility rates pretty significantly on everybody. And if we really want them to take us seriously on the street funds, I think we need to show them that we're taking their tax dollars seriously when we're setting a tax rate now. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, you got the figures yet?
Yeah.
Nine seventy-one.
Based on what?
Not even a million. 5.8. Yeah, the original, the 5.8. We don't raise taxes from the previous year. That is the number it was last year.
That's correct.
That's the number I'm looking at.
1 second.
Okay.
Those are numbers now?
That's the number?
Yeah.
Okay. One more.
We've had obviously considerable discussion. What you need to do is now is you need to take a look at what we, the council, believe would be a rate that we can all live with and that our taxpayers are not burdened. So I've heard let's keep it at 5.589. We initially did it at 0.65. Now you're going down to 0.53. The total amounts of money we're getting to in terms of an individual's responsibility or what their burden is. I think Mr. Shelby brought that up very well. It's not a whole lot. But what we've got, which I really suggest that you do, is take a really strong look at not the now, but the future. And this council made some serious mistakes years ago and put us in a position that we're in right now. And I don't want that to happen to the rest of to future generations, future council people who are going to be sitting up here. They have to make some agonizing decisions on stuff. And I remember what we had to do probably 14, 15 years ago. We had to bite the bullet and go to the absolute max that we could before the voters had to pay for it, before they had to vote on it. And we had to do it because we did not have the funds to provide the needs that our community needed. It's that simple. Okay. I'm obviously I'm well over 65, and I've got that tax benefit. That's fine. And I think we can all, in my opinion, we can live with last year's rate very well, and it's not going to hurt us. And it's going to help us provide some of the needs that we need. That's my personal opinion. I'm not the voter. That's you guys. You guys make that call. So what I need now to justify this budget thing, we will need a motion that what the particular tax rate would be.
No.
No,
Gotta
we
do
don't.
the budget first.
The budget first, excuse me, then the motion, okay. So you
So
need
you
to
have a
decide.
resolution for the budget.
Yes. Okay. So you know what those figures are. So let me go to Mr. Goolsby and then.
I just want to, you said that on the wish list was a CID officer. What's a CID officer?
Oh, crimes investigation.
Investigative, detective.
Okay, and then we would like to have another Kristen, so I'm understanding.
No, it was the divvy of her duties.
Okay, and so if I just came serendipitously to like a $200,000 number. Does that cover the two or not even close? I don't know these things.
Right, gets close to covering
Well,
that.
yeah,
Well, it's
200,000 gets you to a
Firefighter.
CID, so you have to understand it's a police
No
officer
firefighters.
equipment and they have vehicles. Besides a fire truck, the second, well, no, that would be public works equipment, but the police vehicles are not an average vehicle and they have to be equipped. So he's saying 200,000 would get you to your standing up of your CID.
150 would probably reasonably do it,
150.
Councilman. Yeah.
So if I argued that if we went 250,000, I could have a CID officer and another Kristen or a helper for Kristen?
If that's what the council tells us to do, that's what we'll do.
So basically, all I'm saying is that gives us the balance plus a little cushion, so we don't have to, because I was here for those years where we had to constantly push every year. We got there.
And we also had no reserve fund.
Right. There was no reserve for a long time.
It was bad.
So we got there, but you have a wish list.
It goes away.
I don't want to go $14. I think you're, to some people, $14 a month is a good thing. Okay, so what is the number that will get me to the $250,000 over your budget? I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, that's why we have the spreadsheet. I'm sorry, what was it? Mr. Najarian's number, .544,577.
It's 10 and 1. That would be 250.
.544.
That's 250.
Well, that's what he said, 250 or .544,577.
I feel like that's a compromise.
Remember, it's 491 per thousand.
Sir?
The 1491 is the value of my house.
Which is the average. Victor Bureau told us 295 is the average all over New City on his last presentation.
Averages don't mean anything. I mean, there's a large percentage of our population that have under $100,000 houses.
Yeah. So, but again, I'm looking for balance from one end to the other. I mean, that's why you're all the way over there and I'm all the way over here.
That's how we work.
Okay, all right. So what you're asking for council now is approval of the budget, and how does that have to be stated? Because the budget obviously is directly related to the tax rate.
Okay. Lots of numbers. So you have to decide what your budget number is going to be. This is what Mr. Goolsby and Mr. Najarian gave you. Somebody else gave you another number. So they have to state what the revenue is, correct? Yes. The M&O.
It's their cover sheet and their agenda packet. It says the revenue.
We have it up.
I'm looking at it.
I'm going to put it up on the screen for them.
But are those numbers going to change before we do it?
What was that rate?
.544.
Councilmember Vaughan, I would like to hear your opinion on this before I tell the mayor thank you.
I would just say on the average home, it's an increase of about 1.8 roughshot % on the tax. So on an annual basis for $295,000 home, somewhere around 25 to 30-ish for the year. So it's not astronomical. It's a great improvement over 65. I do think we should stick with the 9.851, but if that's the consensus, I'd be willing to go with 0.544.
I mean, I'm leaning that direction. I mean, I could do what Councilmember Buck did and say 0.5438 and keep changing those numbers, but looking for you like the 5.44, you're fine with that.
And I just wanted to get us close to that balanced budget to see what that number is. I wouldn't necessarily say that's the rate that we should go with.
Are you making a motion?
I'm asking your opinion.
I mean, I'd like it to be a little less, but like I said, I'll compromise on the 544.
when I brought this up initially too, with all the numbers that would be flying around, your initial number at .538, I'm thinking that's a good compromise. You should have all those numbers at the .544. I like that number.
Okay, but the motion has to be to,
We're doing
at this
the
point,
budget.
budget.
Okay,
not the
but
tax.
this is what we have to know as a staff, so we can give you the appropriate wording, so make sure that we fall within the confines of what the law requires you to do. So on your packet for tab F, you have a resolution. And in that resolution, in the header, it has a number, and then in number 1, it has a number and a percentage. If you've all finished your discussion and you feel that when we get to the tax rate, this is what you're going to agree upon, then when you go in and you start adding that number in, the number that you need to state is, so what is the increase?
We need to know, is it going to be a 0.54?
That's what I'm asking them, is this, are you done with your discussion?
So you're trying to give us the general fund revenue so that when we make the motion so that the revenue matches what we need to match on the tax rate.
Right now it reads.
So we have to kind of come to some kind of agreement of what the.
One would hope you would help.
I still want my firefighter from getting a CID officer. I'm just saying.
Okay, so what?
Yeah, I mean,
Chief, excuse me, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
thank you, sir. Chief Casseres.
There we go.
No, you already, Mayor's got you.
Which one do you think?
Mayor's already given you the love. Chief, how much does a firefighter cost?
I can answer that, I'm sorry, with salary and benefits and insurance, not including equipment and what other apparatus you have is $73,000.
And how would that will also potentially help us out with overtime as well? I know we added some people to try and help with overtime, but if we have a larger staff.
Yes, we're always looking in every department to reduce overtime, which is why we have the parks personnel in there as well. Another area, I don't know how much overtime we carry in the parks right now. Oh, that's right, because we have parks, have to have park staff here. We used to be a park where we were on Monday through Friday, but now that we have Veterans Park and the splash pad and some of the other items, we have parks personnel here every day.
What's a parks person cost?
You
brought it up, I'm going to ask you.
Let me do a real quick calculation.
What? I mean, once again, we're getting into pennies here per citizen.
no, I disagree. I think they wanted us to hit that 9.2 or 9.
I understand that.
And I was compromising going up, some, and now you're.
I'm compromising coming down because I want to be at 5.8.
Good. I'm not even. I honestly feel like the 5.44 still is. I mean, I feel like that's that's pushing too far.
I know, but we're pushing the whole population down to 5.44, and then when it goes back up.
But you're pushing the other way. I've already come up to 5.44, and you're trying to take it to 5.8.
No, I'm looking for a middle ground with a couple extra staff members at this point.
I'm already there at 5.44.
All right, the number we need is this particular thing on this resolution that says the revenues would increase by a certain amount of money. That's correct? Right now it reads 619.
So, yeah, and just so we clarify and make sure that I understand too, you went to 250 and your recommendation is that you add in a detective and a city clerk / open records request person. That's what you said, right? For the 250.
I feel like that's yes.
Okay, and so he's asked for the firefighter, which I gave you the number, and then for a parks service worker, that would be with salary and benefits, 57,000.
So 0.545 would probably cover that.
having to run it.
5%. Still in there.
But I guess part of my thing was, mine was more of a contingency, and if you need to put it in the budget, that's where you would put it. If it comes out okay ahead, you're saying we have to account for it day one.
We should account for it, yes.
Then let's just go back to the balance. Goolsby rate at 5. What was it?
5305.
5305 and call it.
Yes.
See what happens next year.
Well, we're not voting on that rate right now. We need to come up with a number.
General discussion.
It's in the budget, we're still in discussion, so. The motion. The motion we're gonna need is to adopt the budget, and with that, whatever that surplus might be. And right now, the way it's written is $619 million. And that's at the current budget rate that they.
That was
That was
six,
at the 0.6.
yeah, that was at the 0.65,
Okay,
which is
so
why we need you all to come to some consensus on what we're directing, so we can give you the appropriate numbers to make motions.
So if it's at 5.45, what would that be?
That brought it to 268, 605, so it wouldn't cover the.
268. That's at
So
5.
you moved your budget by 18,000.
The rate would need to be a little bit higher.
Well, it doesn't matter if there's not enough people to vote for it, so I'm not gonna waste anybody's time if there's not enough people that, agree with we are lowering taxes. We are literally lowering taxes by going to 5.4 from 5.8. I don't care if your property values go up, that's the cost of owning property. I'm talking about the rate. We are lowering the rate. We are lowering the rate from 5.8. I'm asking that we lower it slightly less and maybe look at getting some things that we've been trying to accomplish. I think that's a win-win. We're literally lowering the rate and getting some things that we've been talking about trying to add to our list. I don't see why that is such a difficult concept to accept. That's all I have. I don't have any business.
Okay.
One last comment, Mr. Mayor, thank you. When it comes to everybody's personal budgets, I would say no single snowflake would ever accept responsibility for causing the avalanche. Okay, so we talk about raising our property tax budget, or the rate is going to result in pennies, something like that. I equate that to that snowflake. It may only be $14 a month, it may be $65 in a year. When you take that in the aggregate of what everybody else is already having to pay for fuel, insurance, electric bill, water bills, groceries, daycare, I could go on and on for hours. Those pennies add up just like the snowflakes add up on the side of a mountain, which results eventually in an avalanche, or in the case of our residents, in potential financial ruin. So I propose that the city has told us what it needs to operate. It gave us that number. All the department heads got together with our esteemed city manager. They decided what they need to operate and to provide the level of services that the residents have come to expect in this community. And they presented us with that budget. I propose that for next year, Ms. Turner, that you propose some of that wish list, that you rack and stack, and you say if it's determined by the department heads that a CID officer or another fire chief or another city clerk or an open records, whatever, that we propose that and we say this is why, this is what we want to do, this is where. And I hear a lot of people talking about they want more specificity in the budget. I think if we discuss what we propose specifically to add to the budget that is going to result in that increase, we're going to get another police officer, we're going to get another fire department, another fire person. I think we would have a lot more understanding for that. But I think for now, Mr. Mayor, the city has told us what they need to operate.
That's correct.
We've come up with a rate that is gosh darn close to balancing that budget. And I think it's gonna have a little bit of a surplus. I would like to see us go with that 5305 rate. I could also live with, if there's not enough votes for it, I could also live with the 0.54000. That'll get us a bit of a surplus. It's above the 5305 rate.
Okay, if it's at the 0.5400, what would that mean? What would that add to this resolution? What number would you have to put in there?
Because I think we're all going to have to give and take a little bit, right? We have to come up with something that's going to keep it as low as possible, but cover the services that the city needs. Thank you.
Maybe it would be easier to do tab G first, and then they can calculate the numbers for that.
I think, by the way, it has to be done, we have to approve the budget before we can approve the
That is
tax.
correct, so you approve your budget and then you approve the tax rate to support.
It would be logical, but it's not, this is not logic. Okay, so she's working on that number for me, so.
I have a second question. So this is a first reading.
I said 540.
So it just has to be close. And if for some reason the budget doesn't line up with it, the second reading that can be adjusted. I mean, we're trying to like nail it right in the center of the bullseye, right? I mean, we have a little bit of flexibility on that because we have a second reading.
The tax rate, there'll be a second reading. The budget is.
The budget is only by resolution.
It is only a one reading? Okay.
So, yeah, one is by resolution, two is by ordinance. So, yes, it would be a first reading.
We have to nail it the first time.
Yeah, you have to get your budget right, that's why we're having this lengthy discussion.
Worth a shot.
Jessica, you typed in 544. I had said 540.
We didn't look at that rate before.
Yeah, we did not. But it's between the 5305 and the 544. Results in $178,000 of surplus. So, Mr. Mayor, I would make a motion that we approve. For the budget. I was going to say the budget.
Because on the resolution, while they have a chance.
We have to change the resolution.
Yeah, we have to change the resolution.
For the budget also.
Voting on, because even though you may see an excess of $178,000, there is still, we have to go back based on what the increase was from last year's budget to this year's budget.
Because our motion has to say we recommend that we move for
We are
approval of the budget
increasing
and with an
revenue
increase
by-
of revenue by blah, blah, blah.
Yes, so give us a chance.
He's printing copies. 1 moment.
So y'all have something to do. And let's not change our mind.
Okay, once we get that figure, then I'll need a motion and a second, and then if there's any other discussion, and then we'll have a vote, and that would be for the budget, and then we'll move on from the budget.
So while we're having the discussion, we're waiting, so when you're approving the resolution, you're adopting the resolution by the number and then ratifying the property tax increase by blank dollars reflected in the 2024 for each budget. When you get to the ordinance, you're going to read the ordinance number ad valorem for 2022 at a tax rate. You say the tax rate per $100 of appraised value, appointing a tax assessor collector, and then you need to go down to item number 1, and you need to state your M&O, your debt service, and your total rate out loud, which is what we have on the board for you.
That's for the tax rate.
That's for the tax rate. Yeah, I'm just letting them know. I'm trying to fill time so that we don't have this discussion when we get to the next item.
Do we have a number? Okay. Okay, that's it, fine. You see where it is? Everyone, that's the tax rate now.
We're gonna do the budget first.
The budget has to be first.
Budget has to be first.
We're not on Wi-Fi, so we can't.
Oh, sorry.
And he's
Only one of you can be on Wi-Fi on the screen at one time. We can't have 2 people on it. That's why there's difference between computers.
Okay, so this is the, so Shelby, so I'm kind of downstairs. But they have to read for each fund, the revenues and expenditures.
The cover sheet.
The only thing that will change is the general fund revenues based off of the.
It's on their cover sheet.
So they should have, they have this, the only thing that makes it different is that.
Yeah, just write it on there.
Sorry.
While they're discussing that, Phil, the number guy.
Mayor. We can't have an inner discussion amongst ourselves while this is going on. We have to.
Okay.
You all have that sheet? That's Mr. Brown.
They don't do that in this motion, that's what that resolution is.
Perfect.
The M&O.
Yes.
The general fund.
They're just making motion.
I'll give it a shot.
You would read every fund and revenue and expenditure for each of those funds.
Okay, I'd be glad to entertain a motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the 2023 Universal City budget with the general fund revenues of $22,936,243 and expenditures of $22,757,845. Capital projects revenues of $5,275,858 and expenditures of $5,275,858. Debt service revenues of $1,628,630 and expenditures of $1,620,128. Utility fund revenues of $10,659,445 and expenditures of $10,659,445. Golf course revenues of $4,385,000 even and expenditures of $4,385,000. Stormwater utility revenues of $1,569,579 and expenditures of $1,569,579.
That's it, that's the motion.
Second.
We have a second by Councilmember Goolsby. Any other discussion? All right, Kristen, call the vote.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
No.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Motion passes by 5 to 1. Move on then to the tab F, which is the resolution ratifying the property tax revenue increase. In this case, it would be 170.
Is that not on this.
Okay, the number that's listed in here is $619,193 reflected in the budget.
We have updated ones already.
Okay. So, I'll just read it as that, and then someone can make the motion with a different number. Is that okay? I think so. And what would have to be included in the motion is item 2 and 3. Is that correct?
On the resolution, item 1. Sorry, let me pull my packet.
So I'm reading that as 619,000, and someone wants to make the motion at 797,587. That corresponds with what we've already discussed for the last couple of hours.
Thank you.
Am I getting you guys right where we are? Okay, so I'll be glad to take a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion setting the universal city tax rate for the fiscal year taxes on 2022 property taxes that would result in a property tax increase revenue of $797,587. I further move that the universal city designate the
So you're getting confused with the ordinance, which is appointing the tax assessor collector.
This is correct.
Is that a completely different ordinance?
Yes, you're on the resolution.
The resolution is right here. That's what I just passed out.
All right. So therefore, Mr. Mayor, I move that the universal city set the 2002 property tax rate that will result in an increased revenue of $797,587, and that rate be for maintenance and operation 0.428.
We're not there yet. We've got to do the resolution first.
This is
I approve resolution 909C2022 ratifying property tax increase of, say the number, as reflected in the fiscal 2023 budget.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
It's confusing, and it's also 5 after 10.
I move to approve Resolution 909-C-2022, which is the resolution ratifying property tax increase of $797,587 as reflected in the fiscal 2023 budget.
Okay, that is the motion.
Second.
Got a second from Councilmember Najarian. Any further discussion, anybody? All right, Kristen, call for the vote, please.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
No.
Councilmember Vaughan.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 5-1. Move on now then to tab number G, which is discuss and to consider ordinance 656-C-2022. It's an ordinance setting the ad valorem tax rate for 2022 at, and the way it's written here is at .0, but the way that we read, we need to read it is M&O .428372, debt service .111628, for a total of .54000. And then estimate the property revenue at 10.2, just exactly like up on the screen. If that's what you want to do, that's what needs to be done. That's the ordinance.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh. Go ahead.
I was going to make the motion.
That's what I said. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the fiscal year 2000, that should be 2022 tax rate now.
Right.
For the fiscal year
For the fiscal year.
2023.
Okay, but it is the tax rate for 2022.
Correct.
Okay.
This is for fiscal year 23.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the fiscal year 2022 tax rate. Hold on. that will support the fiscal year 2023 budget.
The 2022 tax rate supporting the fiscal year 23 budget.
Correct, I think that's what I just said. Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the universal city ad valorem tax rate for fiscal year 2022 that will support the universal city budget for fiscal year 2023. I move that it be set at maintenance and operations, 0.42832, I'm sorry,
37.
correction, at 0.428372, that our debt service rate be set at 0.111628, for a total tax rate of 0.540000 per $100 of appraised value on properties in Universal City. This will result in a total estimated property tax revenue of $10,029,473, financing our M&O budget of $8,409,345, and our INS tax revenue at $1,620,128.
That's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Neville?
Second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? Any more discussion? Anybody? All right. Now we'll call for that text. Great.
Vote please, Chris.
Councilmember Bud?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
No.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Okay. Our motion passes. That's what we're going to go with. And this is our first reading. The next reading will be at our next council meeting.
September 20th, sir.
Pardon?
September 20th.
September the 20th, correct. Okay, move on to tab H, present and discuss the 2022 year-to-date open records request report.
Yes, sir. Somebody made a request for this. I apologize. I lost my mind for the night, so let me see if we can go back. We're talking about the open records request. So there was some discussion. I apologize. I wasn't here at that meeting. I had a family emergency. But there was discussion on getting an update on the number of open records requests. So thank you to Kristen who put all of this information together. So the number of requests have increased 34% since fiscal year 2020-2021. That's an increase of 227% since fiscal year 17-18. In fiscal year 2021, staff spent approximately 1,186 full hours doing open records requests, which was 148 work days. For fiscal year 21-22 year to date, the staff spent approximately 386 hours fulfilling open records requests, which is 48 work days. One of the things that we believe that has improved the process is the requester ordinance was updated. The Barracuda email archiver, which allows us to scan emails a little more efficiently. We have a lot more electronic records that we've been scanning over time. And then the police department has a video redaction policy changes that has cut down on that. So you can see the numbers, you have them on there. Thus far this year, we've had 531 requests. Council also has a packet which we did not put out on the web for privacy issues. You can see in there that it says who the requester is and what they were requesting. Some of those requests refer to court cases, police records, and or disputes amongst family members or neighbors or whatever. So for that particular reason, we did not include that on the web because once it's out there, somebody does a search on that person, this will show up, and we don't think that it would be prudent to put that out. So you have the data on the requests that were made, who made it, and how it was made. And then on the records filled by, I guess, KM is Kristen Mueller, RC would be Regina Carmona, MM would be the police department. Martha, and then Tony Seco, so we can get an idea who's filling those requests.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kim, can you, and I apologize, I was reading a little bit while you were talking. The record requests, some of them are just numbers, I'm assuming these are case numbers?
Those are case numbers, yes, sir.
Okay, and that would be, and so I see a pattern of, I'm trying to basically break down, are some of these are police case numbers, some of these are maybe fire department case numbers, is there, you know?
So I don't, well, they're gone. I would imagine that the majority of them are police, but sometimes when there's a police request done, it does require information from the fire department, especially if it was an auto accident or a domestic violence case or something, or if there was an EMS call. So there may be a police case number, but probably could have fire information wrapped up in it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr.
Okay, obviously this is all something brand new to all of us taking a look at this for the very first time. So that's what's up here is just a discussion item, just so you can get an understanding of the background of some of the activity that's been going on in the recent year or so. Any other comments, discussions about it right now? I think you might want to just absorb this for a little bit and see if it triggers any other reaction from you all.
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We started charging people for open records requests above a certain number of person hours that have been spent. Is that correct? Do you have the numbers of how much revenue was generated?
I think this
approximately
year, 0.
Because nobody has met that, nobody has gone above that threshold?
Correct.
Okay. Do we believe that that might be a reason for what appears to be the reduced number of open records requests this year? We don't know.
Don't know.
Good, speculation. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. Any other comments at this moment? Okay, we're going to move into no tab.
Just one last thing, reminding you that you all have personal information on people. If you're uncomfortable taking that and shredding it yourself, I ask that you give it back to us and we will shred it appropriately.
I would suggest if you want to peruse it even more so, you can keep it in your box and come back in and review it so you make sure that you keep the confidentiality of what some of those requests. So that's up to you. Okay, we're going to go into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code, Section 551-72, regarding the purchase and value of real property. If deliberation in open session would have a detrimental effect on the position of the corporation in negotiations with a third party, and for attorney consultation pursuant to Section 551-071, paragraph parentheses 2, regarding property located at 119 East Aviation and 118 East Langley. So we'll move into closed session right now, and then we'll reconvene as quickly as we can. So thanks for your patience, everybody. We should be able to be back out here really quick.
Don't break the fire extinguisher. You know, the fire department will get upset if you break the fire extinguisher because they know you hang out with the police all the time.
The most respected place would be.
I know.
Don't jinx ourselves here at 9:30.
Yeah, we blew that one. I said 10. I'm only, this is not going.
No.
I'm actually going to mention my history. It's important.
All right, make sure the mics, everybody's got the microphones back on. Okay. Let's reconvene from the closed session. It is now 10:24, 10:25, 10:26, and we'll go now to tab number I, which is to consider the First Amendment of contract regarding the Universal City Economic Development Corporation's purchase of 118 East Lane.
I move we approve the First Amendment of contract for 118 East Langley.
Second.
Motion and a second by Councilmember Shelby. Any discussion? All right, call for that vote, please. Chris?
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Buck?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Vaughan?
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes. We move to tab J. Consider resolution 932-2. It's a resolution of the City of Universal City authorizing the purchase of real property located at 119 East Aviation Universal City, Texas by the Universal City Economic Development Corporation for projects to promote new or expanded business development.
I move to approve.
Make a motion.
Okay.
Oh, the.
Make a motion.
I'll make the whole thing.
I'll make a motion that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we consider that we pass resolution 932-2, resolution of the City of Universal City authorizing purchase of real property located at 119 East Aviation, Universal City, Texas.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Chris, call the roll, please, ma'am.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Buck.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Sorry. Councilmember Vaughan.
No.
Okay, that motion passes 5-1. That closes our business for this evening. Move on now to our city manager comments.
Just two things. One, there was a comment about trash service. And so in our waste management contract, they do have their holidays stipulated. However, they have an agreement with their employees where the employees get to vote if they work on a particular holiday. And so while the contract does say on Independence Day and on Labor Day that there is no trash service, in both those instances, the waste management truck drivers have indicated that they would work, which is why we have trash service. I would highly recommend that people look at the city's website when it gets close to the holidays, because we have an emergency alert that's on every page of our website, and it's also on Facebook, that tells you if they're going to enact that holiday service or not. That's just a general thing. All right, well, we lost most of our audience. That's unfortunate because I think this next item is going to be important. So one of the things we had talked about was the November bond election. And people were asking for specificity in the streets, and we keep saying we can't do specifics. But what we did do is we went back and looked at the engineer's plan, and we identified all the streets that were in the poor and very poor category, which would be eligible under the $30 million for either reconstruction or rehab. So Randy has put this list together. I apologize, it is long, and you can see that it does touch just about every neighborhood that we have in the city in those categories. The preponderance of them would be in the older sections of town, which you would expect, right? They're older streets. But there are some that go into each and every area. And the reason I mention this is we are starting to work on our marketing material. It's been approved by multiple legal counsels. And so we will start putting out the information regarding the upcoming special election. Any questions for myself or Randy?
That's good, no problem.
Okay.
Very good. And then, of course, that's available to if you want to take a look at it. It's a pretty exhaustive list.
Right.
The
Now,
poor or very poor?
Yeah, poor and very poor. And understand that if the bond is approved, then we engage the engineer and we go in and start identifying the cost of each one of these streets. When we think it's time to start doing a issuance, then at that time we will have, based on the dollar values, the specific streets that we're going to be working on for that particular issuance. Remember, there'll be 5 or 6 different issuances for the 30 million total. At that time, we will have the specific streets that we are working on. And what we do is we will also hold meetings with the individual property owners that live on that street so that they know what's coming. Now, we won't do 2 streets in the same neighborhood because it's a nightmare for them. If anybody's been on a street and they've had the reconstruction done, if it's a total reconstruction, guess what? It could be for 4 or 5 months you're parking your car on another block and walking to and from your house with your groceries or your laundry or wherever it is you're having to go. Yeah,
it'll rain.
And it'll rain, and that'll extend the project another 3 months, and or they'll drive through it and they're stuck in.
Randy's asking.
Yes,
So
sir.
we'll do more than one in the neighborhood, we just won't be doing 2 at the same time.
Yeah, we won't do two streets at the same time in the same neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ken.
Yes, sir.
All right. We start out with Mr. Shelby.
Oh, goodness, thank you. Well, I don't see any streets in my neighborhood on this, but I still support this bond. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's all I have.
Okay. Bill?
For me, that I drive on.
Nothing for me. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Neville?
I don't know, probably just a matter of decorum that we don't follow Robert's Rules of Order to the letter, but it's not right that council members talk to each other. When one has the floor until he stops and somebody else has to address the mayor, get the floor. You just don't go back and forth between councilors. That's not decorum in any place. And thank you for all of you who stood by us for the rest of the night. We hope we get some good for you, for the budget that we passed, and the tax rate that we passed. We hope that you feel good enough to pass the bond on the road, because we really need the road fixed. And we just can't do it, particularly now under the budget we just passed. We don't have that surplus to start doing. Maybe sometime in the future, the way we take care of the golf course changes, that might give us a little bit of money, but not going to give us money to do everything that we want. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've normally been dropping my history lesson when it gets late, but this one is pretty important, I think. At the city council meeting of September 6th, 1960, that was 62 years ago, City Council adopted Title 28 of the revised civil statutes of Texas relating to cities and towns. This officially made Universal City a general law city and can be considered the city's birthday. So to Universal City, to the residents that live here, happy 62nd birthday. You don't look a day over 50.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It was a great back and forth. I remember sitting here whenever we had zero leeway and we just had to push. And I think we've gotten to a point with to where we get this AA+ rating. And I know that it wasn't 100% one way, but that's what I think that we're up here to do, is to try to make that, find that happy balance. And I think we did a good job tonight. I'm sure there are people out there that are mad on both directions, but that's what we're never going to make everybody happy. So I appreciate everybody's input tonight and everybody working together. Thank you all. But thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. Okay, just a couple of quick items. Universal City, for your application, has been named the 6th most popular place to retire. Cities of 30,000 population or less. And it gave the figure that at number 6, there were out of the 10 cities that were listed, 6 of them were in Texas. And UC came out number 6. Pretty nice distinction. And there's a bunch of factors on that. And of course, we can be very proud of it. Okay? And the other thing is, and I'll bring this up at another time because I want to do a due diligence, is that we did lose a hero, a legacy man in our community here. Dick and I knew him really well, Wes Becken. Wes was a 4-time mayor of Universal City, and he passed away a week or so ago, and I had a couple of good conversations with his wife, Shirley. His official burial is on the 14th with military honors in Georgia. And I want to make sure we do some special recognition for Wes and what he did and how he supported his community for a very long time. So I'll be coming back to you with some more, but I wanted you all to be aware that we did lose a warrior that was really super supportive of his community. Was very, very, very dedicated to what he did. So more to come later. So thank you everyone for this evening. The deliberations long. We knew it was going to happen this way. And the decision is made by you and council, and we're going to make it work. That's exactly what's going to happen. Once the decision's made, then we'll all press forward and make this reality in the future. So thank you very much. You all that stuck it out tonight, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. This meeting is now officially adjourned at 10.
38.